across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it's a Wednesday night. I'm Duncan Barkes, in for Peter Cardwell. It is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm here through until 10 o'clock this evening. Good to have you along. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. If you're listening on DAB+, digital radio, or you're listening on your smart speaker or whatever, good to have you along. A ton of stuff going on between now and 10 o'clock. You can get involved as always, because this is a place where the UK comes to talk. 0344 499 1000 is the number. You can call that number. You can WhatsApp that number. You can also send a voice note to that number, and we'll play your voice note out as the show continues. 0344 499 1000 for all of that. And on the text, it's 87222. That's the text number. Start your message with the word talk. I'm Duncan. It's the evening exchange through until 10. We're going to continue to talk about the Labour Party and where does the Labour Party go in terms of its leadership. Now, as someone who writes about politics, Monday's column in the Daily Express, don't miss it. As someone who talks about politics on a regular basis here on Talk, I'm genuinely continued to be astounded by the fact that it's less than 2 years since this government came into office with a stonking, whopping majority. You know that BK, Burger King, have their double whopper? In terms of political majorities, I mean, this was just a whopper, right? And they came in and Keir Starmer has managed to blow it. Now, just put the politics to one side for a second, and I'm trying to do my best regarding this, OK? In terms of a political tragedy, Keir Starmer should be lauded by all of his Labour backbenchers. And less than 2 years into his administration, it's all gone to cock, to use a very quaint phrase. It's all gone Pete Tong, to use a modern-day bit of parlance. It's just gone wrong, which is staggering for someone who got in with a majority of over 150 MPs. And now we find ourselves here on Talk, once again talking about the future of the Labour Party. And in any other world, this conversation should not be happening, right? There should not be a conversation about Keir Starmer's future at this stage in his administration. There should not be a conversation about who the next leader of the Labour Party should be or could be. Now, you know, because you listen to this radio station, you watch us on YouTube, we have this by-election taking place tomorrow. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. No by-election chat here tomorrow on Talk for the simple reasons when the polls open at 7 in the morning through until 10 at night, we can't talk about it on the radio or indeed on YouTube because we have some antiquated broadcast laws. So you'll get a little bit of respite until 10 o'clock tomorrow night. But this by-election tomorrow is just so significant in the history of British politics because, theoretically, it will decide who the next leader of the Labour Party will be. Now, hear me out for a second. If Andy Burnham, the Labour candidate, wins the by-election tomorrow, he will now be a Westminster MP, OK? He will be in Parliament and he is in a position to, therefore, challenge Keir Starmer to become leader. He said as much, that's what he plans to do. We don't know the timing, though. Will he do it immediately? I don't think so. I think he'll try and get Starmer to outline a very graceful exit from Downing Street. And then you have a leadership contest. Will it be a coronation that Burnham just gets handed the role of leader of the Labour Party? I don't think so. As with every political party, there's so many egos. I mean, trust me, I've worked in politics for a long, long time. Every politician of every political colour believes they could do a much better job and be leader of their party than the person who's already doing it. So it won't just be a Burnham coronation. You will see all of the usuals come out. We know that we're streeting. He's going to have a tilt at it. We also, well, I suspect that John Healey, the Defence Secretary, resigned for a reason. He talks about not being enough money for defence, and I believe that, actually, but also I think he'll be tempted to have a go. Who else? Well, Big Red Ange, I suspect, will find it difficult not to have a bit of skin in the game. So I don't think it'll be a coronation. I think there will be a leadership battle. And I don't think if Burnham, right, becomes Labour's latest MP, and if he replaces Starmer, I don't think he'll call a general election. And I'll tell you why, because the polls at the moment aren't great for Labour. All right, they're great for Reform UK, but they're not good for Labour. So it would be a rather, how can I put it, stupid person who calls a general election when his party is not doing too well in the polls. His Labour backbenchers won't thank him for that, because whilst there might be a so-called Burnham bounce, should he become leader, there's no guarantee they would get back in with a massive majority. So this is my question to you, OK? On the basis that I don't think we're going to have a general election anytime soon, who would you like to see, and this is a bit of a challenging question, lead the Labour Party? 0344 499 1000. You see, there is an argument, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, there's an argument to say it's better the devil you know. Starmer as Prime Minister, Reeves as Chancellor. I mean, we know what we're getting, we know what we've had. It's been pretty unpleasant, but at least the bond markets have a bit of stability about them if those two remain imposed. If it all goes and changes, and you have Burnham who becomes leader, and then ready for this, shudder, Ed Miliband potentially as Chancellor, I mean, that's more chaos at the heart of British government, and it's not good for this country's reputation. So I know it's a tough question, because I'm asking you to actually think, well, I need to think about Labour. And you might not want to, and I don't want you to have nightmares. But who should lead the Labour Party after Starmer? Because let's be honest, Starmer is a dead man walking. No question about it. He says he's going to fight. I don't believe he's going to fight. At some point, the unions will pull rank and go, mate, you need to go. Otherwise, there's no more money coming in. Who should lead the Labour Party? What is the least worst option? 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages. Old school texts to 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Keir Starmer's been out and about today talking to the media. He says he's not going to walk away.
No circumstances.
I'm not going to walk away.
You're
I'm
not
going to fight.
No circumstances you would step aside.
I'm not walking away.
Okay.
I'm going to fight. The question is, do we pull together and turn that around as a party and as a government, which is what I think we should do, or do we descend into a leadership race which will bring chaos with it? We know that. The last government did this.
So that's Keir Starmer saying he's got no plans to just give it all up. He's going to fight, fight, fight. Do you believe him? 0344 499 1000. Also, he was questioned about Andy Burnham. I wonder how genuine you think this particular clip sounds, or indeed looks, when he says that Burnham would be a great asset for the government.
Would you bring Burnham back into your cabinet?
Oh, Andy's a great asset, and yes, I want him to have a big role in government.
Are you going to call him at the weekend and invite him back into your cabinet?
Well, I'm sure I'll talk to Andy after the weekend. Of course I will. I've spoken to him many times in recent weeks, and when I came into politics in 2015, it was Andy Burnham's team that I joined, and we worked very well together. He's a huge asset. He's been a fantastic mayor in Manchester, and if he comes back into Parliament, and I hope he wins in the by-election, he'll be a fantastic asset for our party and for the country.
Yeah, I think the only role that Keir Starmer would like to see Andy Burnham have is to the bottom of the stairs after a great big shove. 0344 499 1000. Someone's just messaged saying you should be Labour PM as you're a lefty loony. Am I a lefty loony because I'm asking the very simple question, anonymous messenger, that who should lead the Labour Party? Is that where we're starting from tonight? Is that tonight's base? We've got a long way to go. 0344 499 1000. Face facts, face reality, OK? Unless there's going to be a political earthquake tomorrow, it looks like Burnham may well get in as MP, right? If that happens, you're going to see changes at the top of the Labour Party. I believe it's inevitable. Face facts. Who should lead the Labour Party? Let's have that conversation. You're capable of having that conversation. I'm capable of having that conversation. Let's face the reality of what's going on in this country. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a view on this from David Wooding, former editor of the Sunday Express. Evening, David.
Evening, Duncan.
Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening here at Talk. I mean, you know, Starmer appears to be digging in. He's not going to walk away. He also, I think, through gritted teeth, David, though I'd like your view on this, said that Andy Burnham would be a great asset for the government. What do you take of what we've heard inside the last 12 hours? Well,
I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the flat above number 10 to hear what he's saying to Victoria, his wife, about it. I mean, it's a bit probably like if you're a substitute goalkeeper for England and you want your team to win, you have to want your team to win, but secretly there's a niggling thing in the back of your head saying, if he lets a few daft goals in, I might get his job. And I think perhaps, there probably is a little bit of Schadenfreude thoughts in his head that it would be nice to see Andy Burnham slip on a banana skin tomorrow, which is, as you said earlier, probably unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Burnham's allies are briefing tonight that if Keir Starmer were to offer him a position in the cabinet, a senior role in government, that he would turn it down. I mean, Burnham's not said that himself, but his allies are briefing the media saying he's not remotely interested. I mean, do you think there's any position that could tempt Burnham to say, yes, I'll join you in the cabinet, or is he simply just out to become leader and consequently Prime Minister of this country?
Well, there's only one job in the cabinet that Andy Burnham wants, and that's the Prime Minister's job. He will probably turn it down. I can't think of a job he could offer him which would placate him and keep him quiet. Yeah, he just wants that job. And the only reason he's standing, he's given up a plum job as Mayor of Manchester, a well-paid job right on his doorstep. He lives only a few miles away from his office, is because he wants to be Prime Minister. There's no other reason for him standing for the people of Makerfield.
Yeah, I think you're right. And looking at some of the polling, and it's difficult because you and I do this for a living, and sometimes it's too easy to take polls at face value. But certainly all of the polls that have come out have shown that Burnham is in the lead at the moment. So unless there's a massive earthquake tomorrow in Makerfield, he will be selected as MP. How quickly do you think he will move once he's elected in terms of setting the wheels in motion to get Starmer out?
Well, I think it'll happen pretty quickly because we've heard today that Wes Streeting, the former Health Secretary, also is announcing that he will stand, that he has the requisite number of MPs to back him, 81, and that he thinks that Keir Starmer should stand down. So all it needs is for one of them to throw their hat in the ring with getting the requisite number of backers, and it's game on.
Do you think Streeting does have that number of MPs? Because there's an argument to be made that if he had that number in the bag, he could have made a move by now. Yes.
Well, he did say, in fairness, that he wanted to have a proper contest rather than a competition. But we'll find out, won't we, in the next 24 to 48 hours?
Yeah.
He may well... I mean, what we'll never know, because what he'll say is, I've decided to back Andy and pull out. Because I think it's better for the Labour Party. He'll never admit that he hasn't got the numbers if he hasn't got them. But if he has got them, he will probably run.
And of course, if, and we're talking hypothetically here, but with a bit of muscle to back it up, if Burnham were to become Makerfield's next MP, he's back in Westminster, that leaves a vacancy for the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Now, in some ways, given the local election results of last month, that could be a consolation prize for reform, couldn't it?
Absolutely. It would be one hell of a blow to the Labour Party if they won Makerfield, where they already had an MP, and then lost Manchester. That would really set the cat among the pigeons.
And a final question. We've talked about Burnham, we've talked about Streeting. We know that John Healey, former Defence Secretary, well, I've heard he's on manoeuvres. I mean, I don't know. Do you think he'd have a tilt at the leadership?
Well, he seems to have... I mean, like you said earlier, Duncan, I think John Healey made an honourable stand and resigned. We don't see that very often from MPs these days, or ministers. And I think he was doing the decent thing. And I know John quite well, and I believe that he stood down for the right reasons. He may have people behind him saying, come on, John, you should stand. And maybe he will stand, if only privately, admitting that he wants to get a good job with whoever becomes the next Prime Minister. The big question, really, Duncan, is the one of whether Andy Burnham decides to call a snap election. He will never be stronger than he is when he becomes Prime Minister, because he'll have got there in a wave of popularity. People will be glad to have got rid of Keir Starmer, and so he will have a bounce, as you called it. But of course, that's only going to slip away from him because there's more mess around the corner, interest rates and inflation, and he's only going to slip further and further from popularity. And on top of that, of course, we don't know what he's going to plan to do, whether he's going to lurch to the left or whether even he has a plan for government or he just wants the job. So all these questions have to be answered.
Yeah, I mean, when the question's been put to him about whether or not he'd call a snap general election, he's insisted that he will not. But you and I are probably old enough and wise enough and cynical enough to know that that could well mean that's his intention. Listen, David, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time this evening. That's David Wooding, former editor of the Sunday Express. You ready for this? Here it comes, the runners and the riders for the Makerfield by-election. These are the candidates. For the Lib Dems, it's Jake Austin. For the Count Binface Party, it's Count Binface. Andy Burnham for Labour. Dan Clark for the Libertarian Party. John Dyer is the independent candidate, or an independent candidate. Ed Gemmell for the Climate Party. Another independent candidate is Paul Gould. There's Alan Howling Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon for Reform UK. Robert Pownell for Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd for Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield for the Green Party. Peter Ward for Rejoin EU. And the Conservative Party candidate is Michael Winstanley. It is Talk. It's a Wednesday night. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm here through until 10. Up next, we go to our debate desk. Joining us this evening, we have political commentator Candice Holdsworth and broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley. They're here next at Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists, they're coming over here, literally like putting a wall in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Duncan Barkes. It's Talk. I'm here through until 10 o'clock tonight on the Evening Exchange. You want to get involved? 0344 499 1000 for voice notes, calls and WhatsApp messages. Old school text 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Joining us in the studio of tonight's debate desk, political commentator Candice Holdsworth and broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley. Hello both.
Hi.
How are you doing? Both well?
Yep.
Very well.
Thank you for coming in. Let's chew over, whilst we still can talk about it, because as of 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it might be of a bit of relief to some listeners and viewers to talk, we can't talk about the by-election because of broadcasting rules and stuff, so let's just have one last crack of it tonight. Keir Starmer, I believe, is a dead man walking, right? I think he's on limited time. We know that if Burnham wins tomorrow, he's going to have a go at becoming leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister. We know that West Streeting is saying the same. We're asking our viewers and listeners tonight, who should lead the Labour Party? Because I don't believe that they call a general election because where they're sitting in the polls. Where do you think Starmer sits this evening, Candice?
OK, so if you talk to Labour people behind the scenes, they all seem to think that he's going to step aside for Andy Burnham, but he's not saying so publicly because it would diminish his authority even more, and his authority is already so degraded. I don't know if that's wishful thinking on their part. They could just want that to happen rather than he stands and fights. I mean, the fact of the matter is Andy Burnham is going to come in with absolutely zero electoral mandate. If he's going to pivot to the left, that will even have less legitimacy than what we've got now.
Yeah.
And the sense of entitlement that he just thinks he can come in with zero mandate, zero legitimacy and take over. I mean, it's just the most toxic brew, and I don't know how people are going to respond. Probably quite badly.
Is that a fair comment, Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's my thing. I've been thinking about this a lot. What do I actually want to have happen? What would be great?
Go on, then.
And then I did think, actually, is a weakened Starmer that's had to U-turn on every policy actually the best place to be? You know, I know I'm more on the left, but I'm not a fan of Starmer. And I'm like, well, actually, you know, could Andy Burnham coming in, actually, I know you're saying he's going to be not legitimate and he'll have no mandate, whatever, but he is going to have the bounce that people usually have. He's going to have his own vision. People are going to get behind him.
But is he going to have a vision? I mean, do you believe he's got one? And if so, what do you think it is? Because I don't know, and I do this for a living, as to you two do.
His vision is Andy Burnham, Prime Minister.
But that's it. That's not enough, is it?
But it's government by vibes. I mean, this is how it goes. And from what, you know, another thing as well, when you speak to people involved in the Labour movement, they say that they're actually that they're most scared of like a negative headline. That's why Starmer is such a weather vane, where it's very difficult to work out what his core beliefs are, because he sort of chases after whatever he thinks will get him the most applause.
But I guess the thing is Starmer is so unpopular. We know that. And I guess what Andy Burnham is bringing to the table is, allegedly, popularity. That he is popular. Though? Let's see how popular he really is.
With the Labour Party.
When people go to the polls.
But not with the population. I mean, from what... So in the local council elections, I think what it showed is a rightward shift. That the country has shifted right, I think largely to do with immigration and to some degree, cost of living. And I don't think Andy Burnham is known as a pragmatist. I think he's known as firmly on the left of the Labour Party, and I just don't think it matches the mood of the time.
The thing that we've got to think, though, about switching Prime Ministers is we saw this with the Tories. You can't have this rotating door of Prime Ministers. Nothing gets on. It already, not that I'm saying we shouldn't do this, but already going to the polls every 5 years resets the direction. The reason that China and Russia go so far ahead of us is not that I'm saying I want their system is, but they can execute a 20-year plan. We can barely execute a 5-minute plan. That's why the country is a mess.
Well, we're getting some interesting messages in from our viewers and listeners to talk this evening. One name I've not mentioned yet is the Defence Minister, and I think he's an ex-Marine or an ex-paratrooper, Al Carnes. He's an Armed Forces Minister, but he used to be in the forces, didn't he? I'm sure he's resigned, but no, what I mean is, before he entered politics, I think he was like a proper hard man. He was a para or a Marine. Now, we've not mentioned Al Carnes until tonight, because a few talk viewers and listeners are saying, well, he could be a good leader. I mean, is that a realistic possibility?
I know. People have become enamoured lately with anyone who's sort of got a service history. And I remember for a while, everyone was absolutely in love with Penny Mordaunt. Do you remember? She had a bit of a bounce. And when she carried the sword at the coronation. People love that sort of thing, like people who represent very respected organisations.
But that their profile is beyond politics.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, I think so. I mean, I know Penny a little bit because, you know, I live on the South Coast and she was MP for Portsmouth North and stuff. And, I mean, you know, where she got the cut through is because a lot of people knew her as the woman with the sword, right? And also, you know, she's a Royal Navy reservist. I think her dad was a paratrooper as well, so there's a bit of military background there. So you think, because you said something really interesting a moment ago, Candice, and so did you, Lewis, I'm not just being unauthentic, but you talked about, like, the vibes in politics. And I think that it's never been more the case where it's not just about political policy and, like, this is the party I represent. People have got to have some vibe about them. So, you know, we're talking about Al Carnes, a guy who recently entered politics, and people go, oh, he could be quite a good leader of the Labour Party because he probably knows how to kill a man with his bare hands.
Yes, well, look at Starmer. He has no vibe.
Well, but it's interesting what you say. I think that what we want in a leader is someone that, A, understands us, is not in the Westminster bubble, actually understands what's going on, but can also sell something to us. It's not coming out of the left field, I'm going to ban social media, even though it wasn't in the manifesto. It's coming out with, this is the idea, I know there's going to be trouble with it, here's how I'm going to sell it to you. There's none of that, really. It's just, oh, well, I'm in this office, so I can do this.
I know.
And I think that's what they need to understand.
I know, but we do need to move into, like, what people's beliefs are. We do actually need proper policy.
Where is the plan? You know, it's been very clear that when Labour got into office less than 2 years ago, there was no plan, right? And they had 14 years. 14 years? Yeah. 14 years, 2010 to 2024, Tories in office or leading the governments. They had 14 years, Labour in opposition, to prepare a plan. And they got into power and it's like, oh, what do we do now? And they had no ideas. And it's really interesting because I think, going back to your vibes comment, Candice, and also the fact of where we are in politics today, not only do people need a plan that they clearly articulate to the electorate, but also, right, they need to be prepared to upset people. And that's what, and I'm a little bit older than you two, but that's what Margaret Thatcher was prepared to do in 1979. She came in, the country was on the bones of its backside, and she was prepared to make some really, really tough decisions. And we saw the miners' strike and all kinds of stuff, which are not, divided communities. But stuff needed to happen. There had to be some hard medicine delivered to the electorate. And I think we're in that position now. And certainly Starmer doesn't appear to have a plan. And I don't think Burnham's got a plan. And anyone I talk to, they just go, this country feels like it's 5 minutes to midnight.
Well, maybe that's because
it's the last chance saloon.
Maybe the system doesn't work. And I've been giving a lot of thought to how I know no one likes it. I think we need more public voting on a lot more things. I think if you can put to the people, look, do you want net zero or not? Right. And you get a decisive vote on it, that's
it. So you'd have more referendums?
Yeah. I would as well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's flesh this out. So you'd have a referendum on net zero.
Yeah, let's get that all sorted.
All right, what else?
Oh.
This is great.
Social media ban.
Social media ban,
because I think they thought that would be really popular and it was a slam dunk, and actually there's been a bit of a backlash.
I think we could put that one in the bin without a referendum.
Do you know what? It really stinks of a Prime Minister who's desperate to try and regain the narrative.
Yes.
What can we do? Social media ban, you know?
But it was because all the activists had made it seem, like these parent activist groups had made it seem like every single parent in the country wanted this, but it's actually not true. And all the surveys they'd done have been very self-selecting, a group of parents who didn't like social media, whereas most people in the country are like, no, I'm the parent, not the state. I decide what my children do. And that's why I often think, like, ordinary people actually have a lot more common sense, and I think people in the political parties are in little bubbles. They're in ideological echo chambers. They're often far removed from what ordinary people want. If you came closer to what ordinary people wanted, I actually think things would be fine. I think it's when you move very far away from what ordinary people want and things start getting weird. Like when you get open borders and stuff like this, which nobody wants.
The social media stuff's interesting. We're hearing reports tonight that someone might go even further and try and ban VPNs. Which are called what networks? Someone remind me?
Virtual provider network.
Yeah, so basically for those listening and watching talk at the moment, it allows you to pretend to effectively be in a different country and get around your country's social media ban. A lot of football fans use it to access commentary that's available in different parts of the world, so I'm told. So I think that's
insane.
Sorry?
That is insane if they ban VPNs.
You think so?
As the podcaster where VPN sponsor almost every podcast, I mean, I probably know more about it. Companies use it for, like, employees that work from home.
Yeah.
People use it for security. People use it for when you're accessing public Wi-Fis. Yeah. We're always told you have to be secure now. You can be hacked. I think people maybe don't understand VPNs. They, oh, well, you must be doing something dodgy then if you've got to make it look like you're somewhere else. And of course there are people that use it to watch American Netflix or whatever, but most people are using it for security because they've been told to. Companies will push back on that if they try and ban VPNs.
Well, all of this just has this whiff about it, don't you think? Which is, this is a man who doesn't have many weeks or months left. I'm talking about Keir Starmer, who's desperate to leave some kind of legacy because he's ballsed everything else up. I don't want to be rude about it. But, you know, the defence stuff has unravelled very quickly. So what are we left with? Breakfast clubs for kids, which he keeps talking about in Prime Minister's questions. Whatever the question that Kenny Badenoch puts to him, it's always like, oh, breakfast clubs for kids. You know, I'm talking about gardening here.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got that going on. But also it's just like this idea that he's desperate to leave a legacy, which is, well, it's not just breakfast clubs for kids, but, you know, we stopped 16-year-olds getting access to TikTok.
Yeah.
It's a legacy thing. He wants to be seen to have left something behind.
His legacy will be how to squander a majority. I mean, they had such a massive majority. You cannot believe we're only 2 years down the line. We're talking about he's going to be out by Tuesday.
I said at the start of the show, for me, it's just, I can't get my head around the fact that in less than 2 years, getting in with a stonking majority, it has unravelled so quickly. But I want to go back to this idea, Lewis, that you said this, maybe the system needs to change and the system's possibly broken. And this idea of more referendums. So we'd have a referendum on net zero, social media ban. I like the idea of this. What other
immigration?
Well, yeah, but what would? Okay, well, I think you would. Do you want immigration? Yes or no? It's more nuanced than that.
You would need to do this in stages. You need to put to people what level per year are you comfortable with, and you give some you know, maybe it comes out 80%. Okay, of that 80%, sorry, 80,000 people or whatever it is. Okay, of that, what percentage of that should be refugees and what should be working visas? And you put it to the people and you say, look, people have decided this is what they're comfortable with. You know, that is what has to be done. And then if lawyers try and get involved, you say you are going against the will of the people.
You mentioned working visas. Did you see that story over the weekend in The Sun, where we've got kebab shops in this country applying for working visas for staff so they can work behind the kebab counter? I don't want to be mean.
Or vape shops.
Clearly, I'm someone who enjoys kebabs, right? But I could probably train a donkey to make a kebab. So, you know, it goes back even further, doesn't it? If you say to people, well, let's have a referendum on immigration or who should have working visas or whatever, the situation, the issue is so complex.
A nice kind of like stepping stone, and I'm not trying to endorse something here, but someone I interviewed on my podcast, they set up something called House of the People, which basically is anyone can go on and you vote on what the MPs are voting on in the House of Commons.
Ooh,
so you can then kind of say, the MPs voted this way, but actually the public voted this way. And you can start having those comparisons of how far the public
I don't want to upset you, Lewis, because you're a good bloke, but I suspect the only kind of people who get involved in that are you know, engaged lefties. I mean, otherwise you end up with the people who contribute to Mumsnet running the country. And
then you don't care enough then. The righties need to get up and get voting.
It needs to be representative. But there's ways of doing it. There's so many ways of doing it. I think, honestly, they need to understand what people think, because they often do. They become... their perception of what the public want becomes skewed by lobby groups, activist groups, their own little political echo chambers.
Activist groups that are often funded by the taxpayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, listen, we'll come back in a few moments' time. I've got a great story about Lambeth Council. This is led by... It's a London borough of Lambeth. It is led by the Green Party. And they're not very happy with immigration raids in their borough, so they're considering pulling cooperation with the Home Office over this. We'll get your thoughts on this next at Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Duncan Barkes. It's Talk, the home of common sense on a Wednesday evening. Good to have you along. Some messages coming in. This is Gary, who says, I fear whoever replaces Starmer will be worse for the country, and it pains me to say Starmer should stay. Well, you know what the phrase is? Better the devil you know.
Yep.
I mean, you know, we know the financial analysts and the markets have said, do you know what? Despite everything, I'd rather have Starmer and Reeves in position because at least there's some kind of stability there.
Yeah.
Who would have thought of using the word stability with those two? This is Dan from Kent, who says things are always left and right, and it's the distraction brought in by Blair and the race to the centre that has brought in nothing more than red tape and bureaucracy. We don't want diversity because it's diverse, and we don't want racism because it's racist. It's the socialist left that need to stop messing with the English language, and that needs to stop. MJ, thank you for your kind comments. They're enjoying the show this evening, particularly the debate desk. And one here from Natasha, who mentioned Penny Mordaunt? You mentioned Penny Mordaunt, didn't you? As an ex-military officer, I have no time for Penny, who thought a man could become a woman.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
I think she's backtracked on that or changed her view. I don't know. As for Al Carnes, how can he be part of a far-left Labour movement who loathe our military, don't really want to fund it, and wants to persecute veterans? No thanks to both of them. I think that's a fair comment regarding Al Carnes. This story I had to read. Sometimes you know, you put this show together and we work with a great team here at Talk, and I look at stories, I read them once, I read them twice, then I have to read them again if I don't really believe them, and this one is one of those stories. So this is Lambeth Council, which is led by the Green Party. They got very excited about taking control last month, and they're reviewing their arrangements on sharing intelligence and information with immigration officers, because they're saying that the Home Office raids, you know, going into businesses or places where there are people who should no longer be in this country or be in this country at all, these raids are causing fear and dividing communities. So the council are reviewing their situation and are threatening to withdraw cooperation with the Home Office, and this particular initiative is being commissioned by Jonathan Bartley, who you may remember is a former co-leader of the Greens. He is now the council's cabinet member for safer, thriving neighbourhoods. What the hell is going on here? Someone give me the answer.
I mean, this is what you can expect from the Greens.
Yeah.
I mean, they are complete and utter crackpots. They are so far to the left of ordinary opinion in this country, and they've managed to seize control of these councils and expect more of this. I mean, if you've ever been to Bristol, which is run by the Greens...
We're going to talk about their council in a second.
It'll give you an idea of what things will be like.
What, have you been to Bristol recently?
No, I actually had a load of friends in Bristol who I have not seen in a while because they just can't tolerate my opinion anymore. They've gone so woke and become so intolerant that I can't even express my opinion anymore.
Right.
That's what's happened.
Have you lost them as mates then?
I have a few, yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Lewis?
I was going to say, I think this hits on something interesting, though, because I think for as much as there is a feel of we've got to get immigration under control, all this kind of stuff, I actually think when push comes to shove, a lot of Brits do not have the stomach for people being ripped away from their families. They don't like people... You know, we've seen it with ICE in America and stuff. The actual reality of removing people from the country, people don't feel right about it if they're frontline in dealing with it. So I do think there is something there. That said, you know, this council cannot pick and choose national laws, and I think that the bigger problem with immigration is that the regular people do not feel it's under control, and realistically it should be at the job of councils and government to say, look, these are the rules, this is how we're going to enforce it, so that you don't feel like you have to get involved. Because you look at the immigration system and think, oh, you know what, it works, and we have a fair number of people coming in, and if anyone messes about, they're out of here, and that's it. And that would make most British people feel like, well, I don't need to be messaging into Talk and being so annoyed about it. Is it? No, and so that's the thing. So I actually think they're doing a disservice here to what they're trying to do, which is stand up and say, you know, oh, we're protecting people. I actually think you're probably doing them more harm doing it this way, because people need to believe in the system. That's my issue. But I do stand by what I said. I don't actually think a lot of British people have the stomach for watching people caught and dragged out.
I just think people's attitudes have hardened because there's been so much chaos. Like I've never seen people, I think, this intolerant, actually, of immigration or refugees in my adult life. I mean, people are just so categorical now because they're desperate for some order. They feel like there's no order.
Yeah. And this is the thing, the people are now feeling like they have to have a say, that they have to be the ones to do something about it, where it shouldn't be. It should be the councils and the government saying, look, we've got this under control, this system works.
But they tend to have a belief that is so... Their beliefs about, I think, borders, about the nation-state are often very different to how ordinary people feel about it. The Green Party...
Well, they advocate open borders, don't they?
And not just them. I think it's people just within government, within the civil service. I honestly think that it's dominated by an attitude that is not held by most people.
No, and I think you're right, and I think attitudes have hardened, because essentially I think we're a fair and tolerant nation.
Yes.
You know, and we have a great track record of giving sanctuary to people over the decades who have fled persecution, you know, from World War II onwards, and rightly so. However, I think people have become hardened in their views because they think that there are people in this country who have come here, we've given sanctuary to, or people who want to come here, and they're waiting to get the green light for asylum, and they're not particularly playing by the same rules as us, and I think that really upsets people, and they become angry as well. What I can't get my head around here is how a Green Council can think they can get away with saying, well, do you know what? And you know, I'm not a fan of the Home Office, but you know what? I think we might refuse to cooperate with them with these immigration raids. I mean, if they decide that they're not going to work with the Home Office on this, I think the government should put them into special measures. This is a dereliction of duty. How dare you say that you're not going to support your government, all right, not the same political government, but the government of this country, in trying to crack down on illegal migration? Is that too harsh? maybe it is.
No, I actually think you're right. We can't all be going off in different directions and imposing different local policies.
No.
That, you know, like it or not, the government is the government. They won the election. They set the rules. You've got to follow what they do. Otherwise, we just descend into anarchy.
Absolutely.
Right, I've got another Green Party story here. I don't want anyone thinking I'm just here to bash the Greens. But this is about Bristol City Council, and they made a decision to ban England flags from public property. It's been branded nonsense by locals who are understandably furious. This is a Bristol street dubbed the UK's most patriotic street, and they've told the media it's nonsense that they aren't allowed to fly England flags on lampposts ahead of the first World Cup game today. This is Torrington Avenue in the Knoll West area of Bristol, and it's become, has been described as an iconic symbol of patriotism over the years, with photographs of flags draped across the street, often pictured during big football moments. But Bristol City Council's Green leader, Tony Dyer, has released a statement forbidding people from flying flags on lampposts or railings or also on any public property. Is he right to do so, Lewis?
No, but I will caveat. Look, I'm a big fan of England and the flags and putting them all up, great, fine. What I will say is some people are stupid and don't know how to put flags up, and what you don't want is someone putting a flag on badly and then it goes on a car that's going 60 miles an hour. So he's not completely wrong to say, look...
Oh, mate, come on, Bristol City Council's key aim here is not, a flag might just come loose from a cable tie. This is about saying, I don't want you flying a flag, because you know what? It's a little bit racist in my view. Surely that's what this is about.
I'm pretty certain.
But maybe that is his motivation, you know, and I think that he would be wrong in that. But what I will say is the council has to say you can't just hang whatever you want from wherever. From a safety perspective, I think that there should be some nuance in that. Maybe you could hang it from a street post, but not over sort of a motorway bridge or something like that. But
I just think, I promise you, the left is... I don't know when they started to believe that the nation state or the symbols of the nation state were so toxic. I mean, like I said, I know people in Bristol. I've got lots of friends there. Yeah. I remember 10 years ago, as all going out watching the England match, everyone was flying the flags. Now they find all that stuff disreputable, and something has happened. Like they've changed and they've become radicalised, and they've started to have contempt for the nation. I think a lot of it is to do with Brexit. I think a lot of my left-wing friends went that way after Brexit, and they started to see it as a sort of hostile symbol, actually.
But, you know, we've got another story. Maybe. It's not just the Bristol City Council, which is a Green council. You've got the Lib Dem County Council, who's applying for a High Court injunction over safety concerns. This is in Oxfordshire. It's become the first council to start a legal battle to ban residents from raising flags on or near public highways. It's Lib Dem led. They've applied for a High Court injunction to stop people placing the flags. And you just look at this, you think, no other country around the world has such an issue with people in its country who are British or describe themselves as English flying the flag of their country. It's only here where we have debates on Talk almost every week about the fact that, oh, you shouldn't be flying this flag. It makes some people feel uncomfortable. Oh, well, health and safety reasons, which we all know is a load of guff. What is it? And Candice, she might have just hit the nail on the head. Is it simply because of Brexit? Is this a ramification of Brexit?
Look, I think it's always been there, but it was sort of mainly what the loony left did, right? Like, you know...
well, you're talking about the Greens and the Lib Dems. I mean, whether or not you describe them as loony left is up to you.
And they would look down on people who had the same, you know, George's Cross and whatever. But now, I honestly think since Brexit, a lot of people have become very, very, very hostile to it. I've seen it.
You watch them cover themselves in that flag if we win.
Yeah.
Suddenly all the flags will be raised, no one will be saying anything.
I know.
Maybe that's what we need to bring our country together, to win, and then everyone can get their flags out.
But I remember sitting with two of my friends who've gone super woke on the sofa going, yes! Like,
have you got any friends left? I'm sorry, I mean, you keep referring to your friends who are either massively left-wing or have gone woke or don't talk to you. I mean, I don't want to upset you.
These are uni friends who I was very, very close to. And it's not an uncommon story. I actually know a lot of people who feel in the last few years everything's diverged. And that where they used to be tolerant of you saying what you believe, now people are not tolerant anymore. Like, cancel culture has become very, very, very toxic. And, I don't feel I can speak freely anymore.
Yeah, it's their loss, Candice. It's their loss.
I think think so. They're going to miss me one day.
Yeah. Go on, Liz, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, it's weird that you say that, because I actually think that people are starting to come together a little bit more now.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the council culture died a death, and when Trump got elected, it kind of, you know, that really changed the game. Trump's big win, and I think since then people have been like, oh God, we're going to have to talk to each other, aren't we?
But not Bristol.
Not Bristol.
Not Bristol. Oh, it's like Brighton. So Bristol is, you know, it's like the independent republic, Bristol. Yes. Brighton and Hove, the independent republic. I mean, they're not, thankfully, representative of most of the United Kingdom. Yeah. At least I hope not. More from our debate desk in a few moments' time. Wednesday evening, this is Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists, they're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, it's the Evening Exchange. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm here through until 10. Petri Hoskin here from 10. Getting some messages coming in, or rather I want some messages to come in. I've got a few phone calls as well about this, about the flags chat that we were having earlier. Well, someone just explained to me why it only seems to be this country, the United Kingdom, where we even give airtime to these councils that go, don't want you flying the St George Cross or the Union flag, for health and safety reasons, which I think is a load of old guff. I actually think it's more about not upsetting people from different countries. Why is it only Britain where that issue seems to be at the fore? 0344 499 1000. Message me with that. Call me with that. Send a voice note. In the meantime, we return to our debate desk with political commentator Candice Holdsworth and broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley. Another day, another set of data regarding our benefits system. These are official figures that show that more than 500,000 people with anxiety are now claiming PIP, personal independence payments, as overall claims surge to a record 4 million. The figures also reveal sharp rises in claims for minor ailments, including acne, bedwetting, constipation and tennis elbow. Official data shows 504,784 people are now receiving the disability benefit for anxiety disorders. That's up from 468,962 12 months ago. This is unsustainable. I'm not here, and I will not use this platform to mock people who have got some of these minor ailments, because I can understand why acne might damage your confidence. I can understand that. Ditto bedwetting, which must be horrible to live with. I'm not entirely sure how constipation, well, I know what it is, but how it works in terms of being able to say you can't live your life in a normal way. Tennis elbow, I simply don't get. This is unsustainable, though. The benefit system, the welfare state, seems to be unsustainable. Lewis, what do we do about it?
Nothing. If I was in their position, I'd do the same. I think this is a natural thing you get from taxing people to the heavens and making work not work. Like maybe they're the smartest people of all. I've said this before in other shows. You know, I have a full-time job and then I do all this broadcasting outside. The first time I had to do the tax bill for the additional income, I basically had to give it all back. And I just thought to myself, why bother? I may as well just get some PIP for my acne or something.
Now, that is really interesting. So you're sitting opposite a man whose hips are riddled with arthritis. arthritis, all right? I had a hip replacement 3 years ago. I need another one. And, you know, I don't have access to any benefits or whatever. I'm brought up in a certain way. You just kind of crack on with it, really. But sometimes I find myself thinking, yeah, sod this. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I could claim for this, I could claim for that, and you know, I wouldn't be able to match what I earned. I could probably get 2/3 of the way there, but I wouldn't have to do anything for it, and I wouldn't be taxed for it either. So, Lewis, is this part of the problem that actually, if I've understood you correctly, well, no, actually, shall I ask you a different question? Are we the mugs here? Are we the mugs?
Well, this is what's happened. So you severed the link between effort and reward.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what our society is doing. What you put in, you don't get out. And in fact, you can put almost nothing in and get a lot out.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us have any problem with someone getting payments if they're suffering from cancer, for instance,
of course not.
or if they've temporarily lost their job and they're looking for another one. That's okay. But for most of this stuff, absolutely not. Like, it used to be that, but I also think it's to do with our culture, sort of, we are almost encouraged to see ourselves as a victim now. And if you've got anxiety and depression, you can't go out and get a job. You can't go out and do something. And you have parents enabling children.
You are right, and it's a generational thing, because my generation, you know, I was brought up by quite an austere Scottish mother, and it was just like, pull your socks up and crack on. Now, you can argue that can be quite damaging, but you can also argue it gives you a certain sense of resilience. I mean, if your arm's hanging off, obviously you can't pull your socks up and carry on. You need to go and get some help. But the idea that you're not feeling too good or life's a bit hard, well, you know, that is life. And Lewis, have we lost a bit of that resilience?
Yeah, I think there's probably been an overcorrection. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, and they could have been shot in the leg, and they'd have said, no, I'll walk it off. Like, that's kind of the mentality I was raised around. Whereas now it is very sensitive. But I just think we've unincentivized work. There are so many people that are on benefits that will want to get off them and say, oh, well, I can't do too many hours because then it affects this. We really need to work at getting people in and making people say, oh, my God, look at the money I've got in my account after going to work, and it hasn't all been taxed away. I see the benefit of doing this, and I see the benefit of carrying on and earning more money. We don't do that. If you are like me and you get some jobs on the side and it all gets taken away, you do just think, well, you know what, maybe these people are the smartest ones of all.
Are we the mugs?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, most people I know, especially the fathers who are the breadwinners, are now working second jobs.
Right.
They're working all hours and flat out just to break even. And yet there are so many who won't bother with it. But I was shocked to learn that you actually have parents of not young, they're young adults, maybe in their late teens, early 20s. They march into MPs' surgeries and will say to them, why are you taking away my kids' benefits? I can't believe that. That is a shift in the culture.
Well, I can believe it, and it's really interesting you mentioned the political aspect of it in that way. We'll get to that in a second. I can't believe that this form of benefit, PIP, designed to help people with the extra cost of long-term physical or mental health conditions, you can get it and you do not require a doctor's fit note. And it's awarded based on how a condition affects daily life.
Yes.
And it's just like, well, that's people just going, yeah, I'll have some of that, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah. The political side of it's really interesting because, you know, I think we can all agree that this is unsustainable in this way. Welfare somehow needs to be cut. The people who genuinely need support should always get it. Those who perhaps don't need support or, to be frank, are taking the mick, need to be addressed to try and reduce the benefits bill. But politically, this is so toxic because it's going to take a brave politician who comes along and just says, right, you know, you need to be means tested, you need to have an interview if you're going to get PIP, none of this, you know, you don't need a doctor's note, you need to sit across someone and be assessed. And I'm old enough to remember there was an MP called Frank Field, who was MP for Birkenhead, no longer alive. And Frank Field was asked by Tony Blair a good couple of decades ago to think the unthinkable when it came to welfare. This was in the late 90s, early noughties. And he did, and some of the stuff leaked out, and we had disabled people and charity groups chaining themselves to the railings of Downing Street, which no politician wants to see. You don't want to see that on the front of the Sun newspaper or the Times. You don't want to see it on the 10 o'clock news, right? Because politically that is toxic. So if we all agree that something needs to be done, do we agree that it's going to take a very brave politician to do it?
No.
No?
I think, once again, attitudes have hardened.
Right, go on.
I think people can... Because people's cost of living is so high, and because they've seen their standard of living drop, and they see lots of people getting something for nothing, actually, no, I think this would be really easy and really popular.
I do... Well, it might be, but I think we come back to who is the one that has the stomach to do things. Don't worry about the politicians. Who is going to be the doctor there saying, you're not having this anymore, and the mother going absolutely insane? Who is going to be the doctor that says, well, I need proof that you've wet your bed 3 times this week? Like, those hard conversations, the public will not like being backed into those positions where doctors or social workers or whatever are making these decisions.
Yeah, well, it needs to be taken out of their hands, definitely.
A couple of BBC stories I want to mention before 8, and time is not on our side, so we'll look at the cuts that have been announced today to the BBC a little bit later on the show. But I do want to talk about this story as well regarding the British Broadcasting Corporation and Question Time. Quite an infamous episode of Question Time where we saw asylum seekers who confronted Reform UK Zia Youssef. Turns out they were coached by a pro-migration charity. These are small boat migrants who appeared on Question Time. They were placed there by campaigners. This is a story in the Telegraph today. The episode that was filmed back in Dover in December featured 2 asylum seekers who confronted Zia Youssef. One was an Iranian who read out a prepared statement about the value of international law protecting refugees. This prompted quite an angry response from Mr. Youssef. The Telegraph revealing that 2 asylum seekers were placed and coached by IMEX, a charity that seeks to build support for migration. Lewis, have they done anything wrong?
Well, when I was last here, we were talking about, oh, why is Rupert Lowe not on the Question Time panel? Like, you know, all voices, blah, blah, blah. They're asylum seekers. There are asylum seekers in the country. You probably want to know what they think. It's probably the coaching but should asylum seekers be on Question Time? Well, probably. They're part of the conversation. You know, they've been through the asylum process. We may as well know what they think.
Well, they broke into this country, though. That's a counter-argument. They broke into this country, right? They're in this country initially illegally. They got granted asylum, so their status changed. And then they go on national TV. You think there's a right for them to be there, but perhaps the idea that they were coached by a charity and how to perform in the media is a step too far?
Yeah, I think the coaching is what I have issue. I don't actually have a problem with us having all the diversity of the UK on that show and people saying, yeah, I broke into the country, this is why I did it, and this is what I learned.
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm not sure that the debate really...
You're responsible. Said it all. Go on.
But it seems like a fake debate. I mean, are these really the discussions we're having? Not really. I mean, I think, actually, like I said, there's huge consensus around what needs to be done with the asylum system. In fact, people's attitudes are really, really, really hard. The only thing I would say is, at least on Question Time, someone will push back on them. What I don't like is when I hear they've gone on to CBeebies.
Yes.
And they're trying to influence children.
So this is a slightly different story, which is a really interesting one, which is, it's not particularly this charity, it's another charity called Heard. And Heard met with a BBC producer and the programme makers of, I can't remember the name of the CBBC programme, it will come to me in a second, but it involves basically an alien who's come to this country and has to adapt and the challenges that the alien finds in modern-day Britain. And it turns out this charity, Heard, was lobbying quite hard for scriptwriters to kind of get the right narrative, as they saw it, regarding the storyline, which, again, to me, beggars belief.
Yeah, if it's in the context of a debate, but when you're but not with children. I mean, anyone who's raised a child knows how easily influenced they are. They cannot push back on that kind of thing. And we forget that a lot of this stuff is going on. People are trying to influence the debate and the narrative.
Do you think the BBC, very quickly, not only with stories like this, but also the cuts announced today, and I'll go through some of the programmes that look like they're going to be axed, do you think it has a future, Lewis?
Yeah, because they're banning YouTube, so they've put the market in their favour.
That's true.
I think it does have a future, and it's a proud British institution. It just needs reform.
I mean, in my experience, the licence fee is becoming increasingly unpopular and harder to justify. I do think the BBC has really... I think it's become quite woke, and I think most people say that. And the number of people... Not most people, but a lot of people say that. And the number of people I know who don't even watch it anymore, which is such a pity, because it used to have things for everyone to enjoy, but I don't think that's the case now.
Apparently no one wants to play Doctor Who anymore.
No, it's all game over. Listen, both, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for being part of our debate desk. It's Talk. It's a Wednesday night. We talk to James Heal of The Spectator next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Duncan Barkes, it's Talk, it's the evening exchange through until 10 tonight. Good to have you along. Couple of things I want you to tell me about. One is, well, they're both political, to be honest with you. We spent a good chunk of the show earlier talking about the Labour Party and this ongoing battle about who's going to lead it in the future. We know Andy Burnham is interested. We know Wes Streeting is interested. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, saying he ain't going anywhere. You tell me who should lead the Labour Party. And for those of you just going, well, this is a bit biased, why are you supporting Labour? Let me give you a dose of reality, OK? I mean, I'm not a member of any political party for a start. Let me give you a dose of reality, and it's really, really simple. There is no way, if Andy Burnham replaces Keir Starmer, he is going to call the general election, given Labour's position in the polls, which is a pretty dire place, right? They wouldn't get back in with a massive majority. I don't think they'd get back in, given the current polling. So this idea that, oh, well, you know, there should be a general election and, you know, probably Reform will get most votes, it's for the birds. You need to face facts. Unless something massive happens, I don't think it will, we are going to have this Labour government for a few more years. So my question to you has to be, who should lead the Labour Party? It's quite interesting. Some of the messages coming in from people just going, like, do you know what, for all of his faults, keep Starmer. There is a view that Andy Burnham, given his track record and previous comments, so interestingly, comments that he's kind of just stepped back from over the last few months. Who would have thought it? Politicians, eh? But there is a view that he would move the party more to the left. And then there's also people like Wes Streeting, waiting in the wings, John Healey, Defence Secretary, that was. And where's Big Red Ange? That's what I want to know. I've got to choose my words carefully. You know, I have a wife, I have a daughter. I'm not a fan of blatant sexism, so I'm choosing my words really, really carefully. But I have noticed that Angela Rayner, last few pictures I've seen in the last couple of days, she has had a bit of a makeover. And I do know enough about politics to know that maybe she's just grooming herself for the next few weeks ahead. Who should lead the Labour Party? 0344 499 1000. And the other thing I want your thoughts on, only because we get these stories all of the time, and of course, you know, England play Croatia later tonight, Dallas. The World Cup is underway. If you're a footy fan, you probably aren't listening, and that's fine. If you're not a footy fan, thank you for hanging around. But this is my question. The issue of flags, never too far away. And why is it that we seem to be the only country in the world where we have an issue with showing our national flag? I can't get my head around why this is. I mean, I've travelled a little bit. I mean, you go to America, and it doesn't matter if it's Trump who's president or someone else. Right, you go to America, you go into a classroom in a school. My brother-in-law is a teacher in Florida. What is right next to the whiteboard? A flag. The Stars and Stripes. It is there. It is not a problem. You drive down an avenue. What do people have in their front garden? A flagpole. What's on the flag? The American flag. That's on the flagpole. Yet here, we've got two stories. One involving a Green Council in Bristol. Actually, if there is anyone listening and watching in Bristol tonight, can you call me 0344 499 1000? If you haven't yet escaped from your Green Council, can you call me and tell me what it's like? Because Bristol City Council's decision to ban England flags from public property has been branded nonsense by people who live there. This is Torrington Avenue in the Knoll West area of the city, and Bristol City Council's Green leader Tony Dyer has released a statement forbidding people from flying flags on lampposts or railings or any public property. Flags. Why do politicians on the left always get so vexed about it? And it's not just Bristol, Oxfordshire, which is a Lib Dem-controlled county council. Do you see a connection there? Do you see a theme? They're applying for a High Court injunction over safety concerns. They're set to become the first council to start a legal battle to ban residents from raising flags on or near public highways. What is it about the flags? Why is it the United Kingdom, in this country, we have politicians who seem to have such an issue about flying our national flag, either the St George Cross or the Union flag? And I know what some people will say, because I've heard this argument time and time again. It's been hijacked by the so-called far right. Whatever the far right means these days, I'm never sure, because a lot of left-wing politicians are very quick to brand people as far right if they disagree with your viewpoint. That's what I've noticed. But they say, oh, it's been hijacked and it's a symbol of the far right in this country. Well, surely, if it's a symbol of the far right in this country, people who aren't far right and completely nuts, that's the majority of us, need to get it back. And we need to display it in a positive way to show our pride in the country. It shouldn't be a negative symbol. It's a positive symbol. But answer me this simple question. Why is it such a problem only in the UK, it seems, to fly our national flag? 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your WhatsApp messages and your voice notes. We will play them out. And you can text the word talk in your comments to 87222. Let's talk more politics. James Hill, who's the Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, joins us. Hello, James.
Hi, Duncan.
Always good to see you. Let's kick around some of this Starmer stuff that's been knocking around today. Let's start with Wes Streeting, former Health Secretary, who's urged Keir Starmer to set the date of his departure from Downing Street as early as Friday morning if Andy Burnham wins the Makerfield by-election result. I mean, I get the sense that Starmer's prepared to dig in. What's your take?
Yeah, very much so. I think that all signs have been coming out of Downing Street for the past 6, 7, 8 months or so that he intends to stay on and fight. Whether he fights to win remains to be seen, but I certainly think that he wants to be on the ballot when it comes to a contest between him and Burnham. And actually, I think if there's a three-way split, as some people in the Labour Party think, that would be his best hope of survival. If it was a Burnham-Streeting-Starmer contest, and it would be the sort of most ironic of all scenarios, wouldn't it? After all the 6 months palaver, if we ended up with Keir Starmer somehow staying on number 10 being the least worst option according to his colleagues.
Well, according to his colleagues, and of course something that's increasingly significant in our country, sadly, according to the markets, who like a bit of stability. And actually, I suspect, well, I know from what I've heard and seen, that despite all of the faults of Reeves and Starmer, they quite like that stability. And if it went to Burnham, or there was a change in Chancellor as well as Prime Minister, whatever, that would upset the markets. Bang goes that stability, and the cost of borrowing increases. And we know we have a Labour government who seems to be obsessed with borrowing money.
Yep, and that's because we're just leveraged to the hilt when it comes to debt. Well, precariousness obviously means that we're now, I think the gilt yield rate is now up than it was in Liz Truss's mini budget of 2022. And of course, that means that we're in a very precarious situation. Unfortunately, we are, as Mark Carney once said, dependent on the kindness of strangers. And right now, those strangers are not inclined to look favourably on any kind of wild promises. I think that's why we've seen Andy Burnham row back on some of the more extravagant claims he's made during the course of this campaign.
Now, you do a lot of excellent writing for The Spectator. You've been looking at this by-election in great detail in Makerfield. I mean, we're on the eve of the by-election. The polls open at 7 o'clock tomorrow, which for a lot of people is good news, because between 7 o'clock tomorrow morning and 10 o'clock tomorrow night, no by-election chat, certainly not here on Talk due to Ofcom rules and whatnot. So let's use this last opportunity to chew over kind of like the last few weeks' worth of campaigning. What do you make of the main political parties and their campaigning around Makerfield?
I think that the reform operation has certainly stepped up in terms of the campaign and the app they're using. And I think Andy Burnham has had a lot of resources coming in. They're expecting about 3,000 or so Labour activists out tomorrow. I think that reflects Andy Burnham's personal vote. But overall, I think it does come down to partly the candidate selection. And I think that some of Robert Kenyon, who's the reform candidate's comments, unfortunately, have cut through past remarks about women, for instance. I think that has been something that put off some women voters there.
Yeah.
And I think Andy Burnham has made a few gaffes nationally, but on the local level has impressed some. And I think that when I went to Makerfield, Duncan, I was struck by how many people were aware of that by-election. Not least because us journalists keep asking questions, but also just that there's a much greater sense of responsibility than other by-elections in, say, Gorton and Denton, which I went to earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, do you think because Burnham now is having to be exposed, if you like, to the sunlight, he's under greater scrutiny than ever before, do you think that we're starting to see some of the cracks regarding this so-called saviour of the Labour Party? Because up until this by-election was called and he was the candidate, you know, he was seen as this great man of the North West, and, you know, you can argue he did some quite interesting things in the Greater Manchester area, though critics will go, well, it's not that good because you've got a skyscraper over there and just down here you've got someone dossing in a doorway. So, you know, not all of the problems have been solved. He was banging on about his bus service. we knew all of this stuff about him. Now, potentially, he's the next Prime Minister. I mean, he's rode back on quite a few comments, hasn't he, over the last few weeks? You know, in the past, he's talked about rejoining the EU. Now he's very lukewarm to that. Do you think now he's under more scrutiny, we're seeing more of the real Burnham, which in some cases is he's not entirely sure what he thinks about stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're now seeing, you know, the kind of great provincial politician meet national politics. He's been playing in sort of championship football mode. This is the Premier League. This is basically national politics. And unfortunately for him, he now has to be in charge of the Treasury, fiscal reality, the bond market. So he goes from being a critic outside the capital to kind of taking responsibility. And I think that the key event, if he does become Prime Minister and does spend a few months, you know, getting his government into line, key event, Duncan, will be that first budget. And I think that's when all the rhetoric meets reality, and you discover that, you know, you can't just sort of flutter your brilliant, you know, brown eyes and say how terrible and talk in a northern accent. This is what reality is going to be like, and unfortunately for Labour, it's not going to be good.
No, it's not going to be good. And earlier today, Keir Starmer was asked about Andy Burnham, and he said he would be a great asset to the government, which was kind of like a bit of a lukewarm response. We hear tonight that allies of Andy Burnham are briefing and saying, look, if Starmer offered Andy a top gig in the cabinet, Andy wouldn't take it. You know, there's only one job that he's actually after. How quickly do you think he would move if he were to win the by-election tomorrow?
I think it partly depends on the margin, and if it's a sort of comfortable, even if 7, 8, 9, 10 points, you know, sooner than otherwise. But I think he's going to have to move very quickly. I think it's also not necessarily just about Burnham in this. You know, there are MPs who are there. When the herd moves, it moves. And frankly, the herd is getting very jumpy right now in Westminster. So it's almost like a sort of, you know, kind of Soviet-era coup that, you know, the trains are leaving the station and he's going to have to get on board.
Yeah, yeah. Or he's going to have to... What's that phrase about getting off the pot if you're not going to use it?
Yeah, use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it, absolutely. OK, let's move on from Burnham a little bit and let's talk about, a different politician, a different political leader from Starmer, which is the Green Party leader, Zach Polansky, who, in my view, has been missing in action over the last few weeks. After the county council, or rather local elections, he seems to have disappeared. He made some rather bizarre comments on the run-up to those elections. I think he's mad, by the way. I'll put my hands up. I actually believe Zach Polansky is not only mad, but a danger to this country, along with some of his policies, you know, including legalising drugs, getting rid of our nuclear deterrent, and all kinds of other stuff as well. He seems to have gone very quiet, and that seems to have been represented in recent polling. His polls have plummeted.
Yeah, absolutely, Ski. We talk about, you know, sort of the fade not bounce. We're now talking about the Polansky plummet. And I think that, you know, what's really been telling is all that coverage of the Green candidates, some of those appalling comments that led to a number of them being deselected back in April and May. And the More in Common figures out today suggest that his unfavourables have dropped from -12 to -25 in the space of around 6-7 weeks, which is an extraordinary drop. And it's quite telling for me, Duncan, that, you know, in the run-up to the locals, he was really present. He went on Laura Kuenssberg the last Sunday. He was doing every interview going. He really has disappeared since then. And, you know, he can sit there and send tweets about sort of saying that the fake mainstream media are after him. This is the big leagues. I'm saying about Andy Burnham, I'm saying it for Zach Polansky. He can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And right now, I think the Greens, and read tomorrow's Spectator, there's a lot of issues with the Greens, and I think they're going to come out to the fore.
Excellent. I'll put it on my reading list. I mean, they're in an interesting position, aren't they? Because a couple of years ago, Reform UK won a load of councillors. I mean, they did earlier this year as well, but I think the turning point for Reform was a couple of years ago. Local elections, they got a load of councillors, they got control of loads of county councils as well. You know, Kent being a flagship one, also Durham County Council, Lancashire, all over the place, which then put Reform UK very much under the spotlight, to put them under scrutiny, because they then had to deliver stuff, right? It's not just a case of saying we can do better or that lot are rubbish. It's just like we're in charge now. You have to deliver stuff. Move forward 2 years to where we are now. We have more Green councillors, and we're doing a story tonight about Lambeth Council, which is Green controlled in the borough of Lambeth and stuff. And this idea is saying that they won't cooperate with the Home Office over immigration raids. It's interesting, isn't it? Because now the Greens are more in the spotlight, and the cracks, I think, are beginning to show.
Absolutely. And this is the reality of being in office. You have to make compromises. And the Greens have a very vocal, very online, very left-wing support base, and they're going to be disappointed. Either you have to kind of play by the accepted rules, which is taking things such as allegations about anti-Semitism very seriously, trying to sort of stick and abide by the kind of difficult fiscal constraints that all local governments under, or you potentially go out there and embarrass yourself and embarrass the party as well. So I think that some of them are really struggling with that. I think Nigel Farage has had 25 years or so to kind of perfect his game at this. You obviously saw a lot of the kind of early errors with UKIP. Reform is a much better version of UKIP in some ways. And I think that the Greens really are showing a lot of the teething errors. And right now, under the spotlight, they're letting all those mistakes play out in public.
Makerfield by-election, polls open at 7 o'clock tomorrow. They close at 10 o'clock tomorrow night. It's a late-night count. What time are we expecting a result in the early hours of Friday morning, James?
I think 3 o'clock is the time I've been told. Obviously, if it's a close contest, it could be later. If it's not a close contest, a 10-point, say, Burnham win, then it would be earlier. But I think 3 o'clock is when I'm expecting it. And just out of interest, because you and I have talked in the past on various channels and platforms, are you going to be staying up all night with a bottle or two, or are you just going to set your alarm for maybe 2:30, wake up and then start looking at what's going on? I think what I'll do is I'll wait and see at 8 or 9 o'clock, seeing what's happened in the mood music. If it looks like it's going to be a nail-biter, I'll stay up. If not, I'll probably get up around 4-ish and do a quick article for the Spec. Excellent. Well, let's hope we can talk on Friday. And thanks for your time tonight. That's James Hill, Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator, here on Talk, 0344 499 1000. If you want to pick up on anything that James said, and just in the interests of balance, if you're someone who is a Green Party member or supporter, because I did say I believe that Zach Polanski is mad and dangerous, and I stand by that. If you want to challenge me on that, let's get you on the air, 0344 499 1000. I suspect you probably aren't listening or watching Talk. You may be just knocking up a nice lentil casserole, maybe slipping into some nice Hessian booties. But if you're not doing any of that, 0344 499 1000. Now, we mentioned the by-election. You know what's coming. Here come the candidates for the Makerfield by-election. They are as follows. For the Liberal Democrats, it's Jake Austin. For the Count Binface Party, it's Count Binface. Andy Burnham for Labour. Dan Clark for the Libertarian Party. John Dyer is one of the independent candidates. Ed Gemmell is a Climate Party candidate. Paul Gould is an independent candidate. Alan Howling Lord Hope is the official monster raving loony party candidate. Robert Kenyon, a candidate for Reform UK. Robert Pownell for Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd is the Restore Britain candidate. Sarah Wakefield, Green Party candidate. Peter Ward is the Rejoin EU candidate. And from the Conservatives, it's Michael Wynne-Stanley. Those are your candidates for tomorrow's Makerfield by-election. And some of you keep saying, why do you read it out and why do you stick it on the screen? Under broadcasting regulations in this country, that is the right and proper thing to do. Right, in a few moments' time, I'm going to get some calls on the air and more of your messages. If you want to get in now's a good time to call, 0344 499 1000, as we talk about who should lead the Labour Party going forward. Again, I'm not being biased here. But there's not going to be a by-election, or rather, there's not going to be a general election if Burnham gets in. I can't see him doing that. So let's face facts, right? You've got people on the peripheral. You've got Wes Streeting. You've also got Burnham, obviously. You've got Starmer saying he's going to dig in. A few other people maybe on the outside thinking they might have a punt. Who should lead the Labour Party? 0344 499 1000. And flags. Why in this country is it such an issue if someone decides to display their national flag? I've got two examples here of two different councils, one in Oxfordshire, Liberal Democrat, one in Bristol, Green Party, having a pop at people who want to display their flag, saying it shouldn't be allowed to happen. I just want a conversation this evening on Talk as to why it seems to only be the United Kingdom where displaying our country's flag is such an issue. 0344 499 1000 for your WhatsApps, your voice notes and your calls. We'll get to your messages next as well. This is Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wall in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
With the World Cup in full swing, Talk Sport and Meantime have teamed up to create So Good Lager, which will be poured from all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the United Kingdom. You can find your nearest pub by visiting talksport.com/sogood. 18 plus, obviously, and please drink responsibly. It is the Evening Exchange. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm here through until 10. After 10, Petri Hoskin. And after 8:30 this evening, we're going to look at this story regarding personal independence payments. More than 500,000 people with anxiety now claiming PIP as overall claims surged to a record 4 million. We'll get a view on this from the Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, John O'Connell. We'll do that just after 8:30 here on the Evening Exchange. In the meantime, stack of messages, also a voice note, couple of calls to get to. You want to get in 0344 499 1000 for your WhatsApp notes, your voice notes, your WhatsApp messages and your calls. Text the word talk and your comments to 87222. Let's take a voice note on the subject of the Prime Minister. This is Adrian.
Keir Starmer, well, I've been hearing for months from pundits and broadcasters and experts that he's going to be gone by Monday or Friday or next Wednesday or end of the month. The truth of the matter is that this man's going to hang on by his fingernails, and he could in fact hang on by his fingernails until 2028-9. So I think we should beware.
I think you make some good points there, Adrian. I can't see him unless something like a group of union leaders knock on his door and just go, mate, just give it up. And if you don't, we're going to stop giving you money. Unless that kind of pressure is born on Keir Starmer, I think he's going to dig in big time. Adrian, thank you for that. Elsewhere, this is Ernie, who says, Duncan, it's irrelevant who leads the Labour Party. They are finished. If you want to see proper democracy at play, tune into Welsh First Minister's Questions, where Plaid Cymru are in charge and Reform is the official opposition. There is no screaming and shouting when Reform members put questions to the First Minister. We have Plaid Cymru, Welsh Conservatives and Reform actually agreeing on politics that are the best for Wales. It's quite literally a revelation. Labour are finished in Wales. We now have real change in Wales, says Ernie. That is interesting, actually, and I think there is a tendency for a lot of media operations, most of which are based in London, and understandably so, because going into too much Welsh politics, no disrespect, Ernie, would alienate other people. But perhaps there should be greater attention paid to what's happening in Wales, particularly with Reform and Plaid Cymru and what they're doing together. By the sounds of what's in your message. Thank you for that. This is Amanda in London. Duncan, I'm still convinced Starmer will call a general election out of spite. He's got nothing to lose. Let's take some calls. There was a subject of flags. This is Scott in Essex. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Duncan. Could you stop the world? I want to get off.
You want to get off the world?
You just turned it to a madhouse.
Yeah, well, it's been a madhouse for a while. That's always been my view. But what makes it particularly mad at the moment in yours?
Well, on this subject with the flags, it's basically psychology and projection.
Right.
They have a hatred of Britain, and therefore they're portraying their irrationality.
Sorry, who's they?
the people that are against these flags.
Oh, so just so listeners and viewers are clear, and forgive me for interrupting, this is the Lib Dem County Council in Oxfordshire who are applying for a High Court injunction over people putting up flags, and also Bristol City Council's decision to ban England flags that have upset a lot of locals. Go on, why are they doing it?
Well, because of their basic hatred of the British flag, and they're projecting their intolerance and hatred of this flag, they believe that everyone else has an intolerance and hatred of the flag. So, like a red ball to a flag, red flag to a ball, not red ball to a flag.
Yes.
Sorry,
understood.
They believe that anyone who sees this flag will be inundated with such hatred and vitriol that they may cause violence. So, for the betterment of the society, we have just to get rid of our flags. They're perfectly fine with all the other flags. The Palestinians ones proclaiming death to certain people they disagree with, the Ukrainian flags, and even supporting the ISIS flags because it's someone's belief. But the British flag is just a flag too far.
So we often talk about two-tier policing, two-tier justice, two-tier sentencing. We have two-tier flag displaying in this country. There are certain flags, if I've understood you correctly, Scott, in Essex, certain flags you can display and certain flags you can't.
Oh, yes. And some of the worst flags out there, they will promote you flying with as much gusto as possible. But having pride in the British flag, no, that's an evil that's too evil.
What do we do about it, Scott? Because it seems to me just unbelievable that it always seems to be the United Kingdom or politicians in this country who have an issue with the people of this country displaying their national flag. You don't see it in America, you don't see it in other countries around the world. Why is it only the United Kingdom where it's such an issue?
Unfortunately, these people have such a myopic view that they believe that everyone should do as they're told. And they're the ones that should be removed from power. The only way we're going to resolve this is to literally get rid of the two-tier flag waving procedure and say, right, if we can't have the British flag, then no flag. No pride flag, no Ukrainian flag, no Palestinian flag, no flag of any country can be flown until the British flag can be flown with peace.
Interesting view, Scott. Listen, I'm going to move it on, mate, but thank you for your call. That's Scott in Essex. You want to pick up on our flag chat this evening, 0344 499 1000. It's a really simple question. Why does it seem to be this country where if you display your national flag, you have local councils who want to stop you doing that? Does it really incite hatred? Does it really make people from other countries feel unsafe? I don't know the answer to these questions. All I know is I look at other countries around the world where you have no issue with displaying your country's flag. Last time I was in Florida, be driving down the road, flagpole in someone's front garden, stars and stripes fluttering at the end of the flagpole. Do that in this country, there's a good chance someone might complain. 0344 499 1000 on the subject of the next leader of the Labour Party, or potentially the best person to replace Keir Starmer. Here comes Andrew's in Halifax. Hello, Andrew.
Good evening, Duncan.
Evening.
Well, in answer to your question, who would make the best leader of the Labour Party, the best leaders of the Labour Party would always be those who haven't got a cat in hell's chance of ever becoming leaders of the party. And I'm talking about the likes of Kate Hoey and the late, great Frank Field and Austin Mitchell, because although they were socialists, they were certainly patriots, and patriotism isn't something that would that this current crop would know the first thing about. So, which actually brings me on to my...
Well, you say that, and I think you're probably correct. But, I mean, you know, Wes Streeting has said that people should be displaying their country's flag, the Union flag and the St George Cross. And didn't we see something a while ago? Didn't the front bench start waving little flags at some point? Although I imagine that. I can't remember. But it seems to me they're quite keen to... They talk a very good game, don't they, about patriotism and what it means to be British and all of this when it suits them. But actions speak louder than words, right?
Absolutely, and it is all words and no action. But you see, this is what I can't understand, and I'm actually a politics graduate.
Right.
In all my years, I just can't fathom. So maybe you will be able to help me out, Duncan. What I can't understand is how a constituency with the demographic, social and cultural profile of Makerfield is even contemplating being a patsy for Burnham's ego. I mean, the guy shouldn't be anywhere near the top of the poll, let alone at the top of the poll. And I just think, have people lost their collective mind?
Well, I mean, it is interesting, isn't it? If you look at the demographic of that particular constituency, Makerfield, which is not just like a town. I've heard people talk about it as a town. It's a collection of small towns and villages, effectively. It's an area. It's a constituency, Makerfield. It's 97% white, and also, during the EU referendum, it predominantly voted to leave. So, with those two factors in mind, and it's not just about skin colour, but I do think the Brexit vote is relevant to this. You would think that Reform UK would probably storm it. And if you take that view that Andy Burnham, or the polling says that Burnham, you know, looks like he's gonna take the constituency tomorrow, does that not say then that his own personal brand is so good that actually it eclipses everything else? Because that's the only conclusion I can reach.
Well, it is, but it's obvious that although they're part of Greater Manchester, they haven't gone into the centre of Manchester and seen all the decay that's taken place on his watch. You know, the scenes of Piccadilly Gardens of crime, and antisocial behaviour, the little favela that shot up outside the back of City Hall and was there for weeks, a little tent city there. You know, the state of Manchester, beyond all those soulless tower blocks that they're building all over the centre of the city, there's been nothing of note in improvement in the quality of life in Manchester. I just think that if Burnham gets it, then my whole... well, what little faith I have in humanity will have evaporated, because I just think, my God, talk about shooting yourselves in the foot.
Well, rest assured, once we know the result in the early hours of Friday morning, throughout the whole of Friday, we will be debating the result and what it means for the country at great length here on Talk. Andrew in Halifax, thank you. You want to pick up on that particular chat? 0344 499 1000. Happy to talk about who should be leading the Labour Party as Starmer goes, in your considered and informed opinion. And also, flags. Why is it in this country we have people saying, oh no, you can't display your country's flag? It might upset people. 0344 499 1000. In a few moments' time, we'll get into the depths of this story. Official data showing that more than 500,000 people with anxiety are now claiming personal independence payments, as overall claims surged to a record 4 million. The figures also reveal sharp rises in claims for minor ailments such as acne, constipation, tennis elbow and bedwetting. We'll talk to John O'Connell, Chief Executive at the Taxpayers Alliance, about this next, here at Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Wednesday night, it's Talk. I'm Duncan Barkes. I'm here through until 10 o'clock. Good to have you along. The delightful and fragrant Petrie Hoskin here from 10 tonight. In the meantime, ton of stuff to chew over, including official figures that have been released in the last 24 hours. Now, these figures show that more than 500,000 people with anxiety are now claiming PIP, personal independence payments. As overall claims surged to a record 4 million, official data shows 504,784 people are now receiving the disability benefit for anxiety disorders. That's an increase. That's up from 468,962 people just 1 year ago. The surge has helped drive total PIP claims. You ready for this? These figures are chunky. From 3,743,945 in April 2025 to 4,010,120 in April 2026. It's significant because this is the first time the figure has ever topped 4 million. I'll ask you this question before we get a view on this. We often talk about the welfare bill in this country. It's been in the spotlight recently. For all kinds of reasons. We know last year, Sir Keir Starmer tried to reduce the speed, if you like, of the increase in welfare funding. He basically bottled it in the face of his Labour backbenchers. We also know, when we talk about defence and the lack of decent defence funding on this station, that we often end up talking about, well, welfare is spiralling out of control. We seem to have a Labour government more interested in funding welfare as opposed to warships. 0344 499 1000. This is not about bashing people who genuinely need support from the welfare state or benefits for their disability, mental or physically. It's not. However, we need to have a conversation about this for the simple reason we have people claiming personal independence payments because they have tennis elbow. I know. John O'Connell is Chief Executive at the Taxpayers Alliance and he joins us. Hello, John.
Good evening, Duncan.
Always good to see you. Thank you for joining us here on Talk. For full disclosure, you and I do podcasts together. We hosted panels at political conferences, and I'm a big fan and supporter of the Taxpayers Alliance because it is one of the few campaigning groups that's really prepared to go, hang on a second, these figures, they're running out of control. We need to do something about it. I mean, what's your take on the fact that this is going on and the figures are just increasing?
Flabbergasting, really. We've seen these sharp increases, and you mentioned the 1 year jumps. And if we look at anxiety-related PIP claims, personal independence payment claims, over the last 6 years, it's gone from 200,000 to 500,000. So this has really started to rocket, and some of it's down to the post-COVID environment. During COVID, of course, assessments for certain disability benefits were switched to online only, and they stayed online only. So we no longer have in-person assessments for lots of these different claims, which means that claims are getting through much more easily. And we see, in fact, lots of people on social media giving tips on TikTok and Instagram on how to claim as much as you possibly can, the so-called sickfluencers. But who pays for it all? It's taxpayers, it's families, it's businesses, it's the people who get up in the morning and go to work. And that's where the unfairness comes in. Because people talk about unfairness when it comes to sort of reducing welfare and this kind of thing. But the actual unfairness is when it's loaded onto taxpayers and businesses who are doing the right thing, doing the responsible thing. From a family perspective, putting a bit of money aside for a rainy day. From a business perspective, creating jobs for people in their local communities. And generally helping to drive economic growth. They're the people, they're the ones that are suffering. That's the unfairness in the system. And we need to get a grip of it very, very quickly. Otherwise, it will get out of control.
Yeah, I mean, here at Talk, we call them the kind of people you've just outlined, alarm clock Britain, the kind of people who get out of bed, want to work hard, provide for their family. They put in a shift, which is a phrase I often use. And then they hear stuff like this and just think, well, people are taking the mick. I mean, I think a lot of our viewers and listeners will their minds will be blown with the fact that when we talk about PIP, it does not require a doctor's fit note, and it's awarded based on how a condition affects daily life rather than a specific medical diagnosis, which seems to me that the bar for acceptance is just remarkably low, if not non-existent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about some of the sort of, I suppose, the more seemingly minor or trivial issues for which people are receiving PIP, like tennis elbow, like acne. These are things that need medical treatment, fine, but you get medical treatment, you go back to work. That should be a given. That's common sense. That just makes complete sense to any right-thinking person. There's two things with that really. A life on benefits is no good for the recipient. If they're able and fit to work, if they're spending their time at home not working in receipt of taxpayers' money, that's not good for them. It becomes a very sort of dangerous cycle of further reliance on the state. If there are some mental health issues, they're bound to get worse, not better, by sitting at home. So not only are we sort of asking or taking taxpayers' money to fund all of this, we're actually not doing the recipient any good whatsoever. But we've also got to realise that people are responding to incentives. This is the system that's put in front of people. And if you say a single mother, look, you can earn more on benefits than you can in a job, then why shouldn't she take those benefits? That's a rational economic incentive. So the system is completely broken. It places all the wrong incentives in front of people, and it asks a lot of taxpayers and businesses. In fact, it demands it on the threat of jail if you don't cough up your taxes.
Yeah.
And then what do? We say, right, okay, times are tough for businesses, so we're going to whack up employers' national insurance to make you pay even more for this benefits bill. And then we talk about the profound national sort of strategic questions around defence and this debate going on in the Labour Party about funding defence and whether you cut the welfare bill and this kind of thing. It's absolutely staggering that we're talking about not being able to trim some of this £300 billion benefit bill in order to defend the country properly. And dare I say, having a sort of cohort of people who are receiving PIP for anxiety is not a good footing for a country that might have to defend itself in the not too distant future.
No, absolutely. Do you think the political will exists with the current administration to properly tackle this?
No, none whatsoever. It's probably the moment that Keir Starmer lost his authority entirely is when he aimed to reduce the rate of increase of the benefits bill. He didn't really even want to cut it in any sort of meaningful sense. It was just to reduce the rate of increase.
Yeah.
And he was told absolutely not by his backbenchers, and he backed down. And that was the moment he completely lost the authority, despite the absolutely historic majority he has. He has no control over his backbenchers, and it was all down to that one particular moment. So no, I don't think that there's any will whatsoever to get control of this benefits bill. And even, from a sort of political analysis, if you like, who are Labour's constituency anymore? It's not the working class. The clue ought to be in the name, but it's not. It's not the working class. It's a weird mix of the sort of upper middle class professionals, the lanyard class as they're called, and benefit claimants, and that's their constituency now.
Yeah, increasingly it just seems like we're a welfare state with an economy attached to it. Do you think that's a fair comment?
Yeah, an economy that's struggling more and more every single day and won't be able to fund this welfare state for much longer. Even if you looked at the PIP claims, the total bill is forecast to go up just for PIP to go out to 40 billion by 2030. These are numbers that are just completely running out of control. Where is this money going to come from? And if anybody has a bit of get up and go about them, they're thinking about leaving the country anyway. So we're sort of we're taking away the tax base to pay for all of this, to pay for this welfare system, and it can't last. It's a bit of a Ponzi scheme, and it's families and businesses that lose out.
I think you're right, John. Always a pleasure. Thank you for your time this evening. That's John O'Connell, Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, here on Talk. You want to pick up on anything you heard there, 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes, or indeed your WhatsApp messages. Old school, 87222, the text number. Remember text? Start your message with the word talk. Now, I've got some political news that's just broken inside the last few minutes. This is in tonight's... Well, it's on tonight's Daily Telegraph website, and it concerns the political party Restore Britain. The Telegraph saying that white supremacists to fund, or rather white supremacists fund, Restore Britain. They're claiming that donors to Rupert Lowe's party include a campaigner who founded a group calling for the expulsion of every non-white and Jewish person from Britain. Steve Laws, who campaigns for total remigration of all non-white and Jewish people, posted on social media that he had donated to Restore, while Gerard Taylor, an American banned from the UK because of his extreme racist views, has become a paid-up member. Others who are paid to join Reform include Sam Mellier, who was jailed in 2024 for stirring up racial hatred, Sam Wilkes, a Nazi apologist, and Simon Burkett, who is buying up land for the benefit of, quote, the British people. Some of Restore's supporters are so openly racist that Stephen Yaxley Lennon, the person known as Tommy Robinson, has questioned whether the party is too extremist. So I bring that to you because I know a lot of you are politically engaged and want to be politically informed, and that's a current news story that's just broken on the Daily Telegraph website. It's 8:45, it's Talk on a Wednesday night. Up next, we talk about the Green Party-led London Council, who are, well, threatening, if not vowing, to pull cooperation with immigration enforcement officers because Home Office raids divide communities. We'll get to that story next here on Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists, they're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, this is Duncan Barkes. It's Talk for a Wednesday night. Let's turn our attention to a Green-led London council. This is Lambeth. And they've been branded as extreme and dangerous because they're vowing to pull their cooperation with immigration enforcement. Lambeth Council's urgently reviewing its arrangements on sharing intelligence and information with immigration officers. The local authority have expressed fears about Home Office raids. The council saying they're causing fear and dividing communities. Now, the review of their current policy of communicating and assisting the Home Office with this particular piece of work. The review has been commissioned by Jonathan Bartley. You may be familiar with that name. He's a former co-leader of the Greens. He's now Lambeth Council's cabinet member for Safer, Thriving Neighbourhoods. What do you need to know about Lambeth Council? They recently elected their first ever Green administration following the elections last month, which the Greens won the largest number of seats in the borough. The local authority said its review would examine its current policies, practices and partnerships relating to immigration enforcement activity. And the announcement of the move coincided with the start of Refugee Week, which started on Monday. A lot of people have criticised them for this. You may have a view. 0344 499 1000. Someone who certainly has a view is investigative journalist David Shipley, who joins us. Hello, David.
Hi.
Good to see you this evening. Thank you for your time. What's your initial reaction to what we've heard?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? They talk about causing fear and dividing our community. What they mean is causing fear amongst those who are in the country illegally and dividing the community between those who have a legal right to be in the UK and those who don't. And it's just very typical of these extreme left groups and parties that they are absolutely willing to ignore the rule of law. They don't care. And they are the real extremists. You know, they don't care that people are in the country illegally. They're breaking the law. They're often working illegally. None of that matters to them. They simply want to ride roughshod over that in an absolutely appalling way.
Yeah, and I mean, I just find it staggering that you actually have a local London council who feels that it can actually get away with saying to the Home Office, do you know what, we disagree with what you're doing, so consequently we're not going to share intelligence, we're not going to share information with you. And I think a lot of local taxpayers in the borough, particularly those who have issues with specifically illegal immigration, will just find themselves thinking, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, and I think, remember, this is happening under a Labour government, which isn't going for the kind of, migration policy which the Tories or Reform are pushing. This is a Labour government which is doing some very mild things about actually enforcing the current laws. So if you think it's bad now, imagine what it's going to be like in 2029 when the Green Party, when all the hard left charities and organisations mobilise to try to stop deportations. And I think this is a good warning, you know, and it reminds us that actually when we do have a government which is actually serious about solving migration, it's going to have to think very hard about how it legislates to stop this kind of activity. And, you know, if there are local authorities, charities, other organisations which are trying to thwart the will of a democratically elected government to sort out the migration issue, they need to face criminal sanction, and that needs to happen quickly at the start of a government that's serious about migration.
Yeah, and I found myself thinking earlier when I read this report, I mean, if Lambeth Council go ahead with this and decide they're not going to assist the Home Office, I mean, surely that's an argument for the government to put them in special measures, because you can't have a local council behaving like this.
Of course you can't. We're not America. And I think what often happens is the left literally takes its talking points and strategy and tactics from the US. So in the US, you have these things like sanctuary cities and states pushing out different rules about migration, trying to resist ICE. But the difference is the US is a federal system where even a city can have quite a lot of power, and states certainly do. And that a local council, a borough council of London, is seeking to thwart the will of the government is just astonishing. And yeah, I think they should be put straight in special measures. And I would actually suggest that it's a place where Parliament could bring in special legislation to either prosecute or immediately attain the relevant council leaders just to stop it.
And of course, this kind of stance, this message that we're hearing and seeing from Lambeth Council. I mean, if you're a people smuggler, if you're someone who's running the boat gangs across the channel, this for you is just, I mean, you might as well put your flags out, because it sends out a very positive message to those people who want to come to this country, which is, do you know what? Rock up to Lambeth, because if you're in this country illegally, the local council won't be assisting the government in finding out whether or not you should be here.
Oh, I mean, and I think, the reality is there are credible estimates from some years ago saying there's probably 1 million or so people here illegally. We know that actually almost no one who arrives by boat gets deported. Actually, once you remove the Albanians, where we set up a special scheme to send them back, if you ignore them, almost no one who's arrived in the last 5 years has been sent home. So basically, if you get here, you get to stay here. And that's why people are prepared to pay so much money to cross the channel. There's all this talk of smashing the gangs. The way we could smash the gangs is by destroying the demand. If everyone who arrived was immediately taken into custody and then deported, people would stop coming. They come and they spend all the money to come here because they know once they get here, no one's going to kick them out. Eventually, they'll get the right to stay here. They'll get housed, at our expense. And why wouldn't you come?
Yeah.
And so this is all part of it. I absolutely agree. And parties like the Greens are fundamentally responsible for driving the flow of illegal migrants across the Channel.
Yeah, you could also argue this is assisting in law breaking, because if there are people in the London borough of Lambeth who shouldn't be there, maybe are working illegally and should face the force of justice and the law and removed from this country, you have a local council who's actually going, well, we don't think that's right, so we're not going to help the government do that. They are effectively, it can be argued, assisting in law breaking. David, just give me a final view. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, and I won't ask you your age, but, you know, I'm a bit long in the tooth. I remember the Green Party when it cared about green issues, right? You know, I remember when its first MP, Caroline Lucas, who was leader for a bit, she was MP for Brighton Pavilion. You know, she got arrested several years ago for demonstrating against someone attempting to frack in Sussex or something. You know, good old solid green issues. I mean, by my reckoning, the Green Party is pretty much just jettisoned anything environmental related, and has just come down on the side of effectively legalising drugs, open borders, and supporting some forms of criminality. What do you think's happened to them?
I think I would add to that they've developed a platform which is very attractive to sort of you know, parts of the Muslim population. They've been very pro, you know, Palestine. They're bringing together this alliance of very, very hard left people, very extreme people, you know, who fundamentally don't think that many laws are legitimate, and, you know, a kind of Islamic versus stroke Islamist movement. And, you know, that's, I think, incredibly incoherent in lots of ways. But the important thing to remember here is, you know, they are helping out with law breaking, as you've just said. But actually, these are people who do not think that immigration law is legitimate. If you look at the rhetoric from these open borders charities and the Greens, they fundamentally think that everyone should be allowed to live here. However you get here, you should be allowed to live here. You should be supported. You know, they don't live in the real world, and they are profoundly dangerous. If they ever got their way, they would break this country in a heartbeat.
Sadly, I think you're right. David, thank you for your time. David Shipley, investigative journalist. You got a view on what you've heard over the last few minutes? 0344 499 1000. This London Borough Council, the council in charge of Lambeth, maybe somewhere where you live, who have got concerns regarding the Home Office and their raids tackling illegal immigration, people in the borough who shouldn't be there. You've got the Greens in Lambeth saying the raids are causing fear and dividing communities, and they've decided to commission a review by the former co-leader of the Greens, a bloke called Duncan Barkes, who's now the council's cabinet member for Safer Thriving Neighbourhoods, about whether or not, going forward, they should assist the Home Office with these raids. You got a thought on that? 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes, your calls and your WhatsApp messages. Of course, you can always text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. In the next hour, we'll take more of your calls, because a lot of you want to talk about the flag situation. Let me just recap this if you stuck us on this evening. We have a couple of councils in different parts of the United Kingdom who are not very happy with people who want to display their country, our country's flags. Funnily enough, one of those councils is a Green Council, Bristol City Council. They're not happy about people displaying flags on lampposts. With the World Cup, of course, England up against Croatia, kicking off in a couple of minutes' time. If you're a footy fan, I'll say goodbye now. If you're not, hang around. You're going to get a third hour of this show. You've got Bristol City Council's Green councillors saying we don't want people displaying flags on lampposts or railings or any public property. Then in Oxfordshire, you've got a Lib Dem council, and they're pretty much saying the same thing. Just answer me this question, and we will take some more calls on this in the next hour. Why is there such an issue in this country with just wanting to display your flag? We're getting to your calls and messages on that in the next hour. And also just after 9, I'm going to talk to a chap by the name of Robbie Lammas. He's a councillor for Medway in Kent. He was a Conservative Party councillor. Then he switched to Reform, and now he's left Reform and is sitting as an independent. We'll find out why he left Reform and find out if he's going to rejoin the Tories. We'll do that after 9, here on the Evening Exchange at Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Duncan Barkes, it's Talk. I'm here through until 10. Petri Hoskin here from 10. We'll catch up with Petri a little bit later on, find out what's on the show. We will continue to take your calls and your messages about a couple of things that really have gripped you in the last couple of hours, one of which is who should lead the Labour Party. You know why I'm asking this question. It looks like if Andy Burnham wins his by-election tomorrow, the wheels will be in motion to replace Keir Starmer. Starmer, of course, saying he's going to dig in. I'm going to dig in. Burnham saying that if there's going to be a leadership contest, he's going to be in the running for it. Former Health Secretary Wes Streeting saying he's got his 80-plus MPs he needs. I don't believe him. If he had that number, he would have made a move by now. And possibly some other people who might fancy a tilt at leading the Labour Party. I mean, why would you? I don't want to be rude about it, but given the current state of this country today and all of the challenges that exist, including a ballooning welfare bill, we can't find enough money for defence. You know, we have a Russian shadow fleet going through the channel. We have people hacking us on a daily basis from China and Iran and Russia as well. We've got all kinds of societal issues going on. Why would you want to be Prime Minister of this country? Anyway, I digress. We'll continue to talk about who should lead the Labour Party. A lot of people saying, do you know what, despite all of their faults, Starmer and Rachel Reeves as Chancellor should remain. So your thoughts on that, and also something that's really got your attention tonight, and rightly so. Whenever there seems to be any opportunity for people to go, I want to support my country in a number of ways, but chiefly I want to fly the flag, the George Cross or the Union flag, maybe because there's a World Cup on, or maybe just because I love this country and I want to show my support, there's always a council or a load of councillors going, no, you can't do that, it might upset people. And my question to you tonight remains, why does it always seem to be the United Kingdom where people have a problem if you want to display your flag? The current councils who, in one case, are applying for a High Court injunction over what they say is safety concerns. I think you and I can safely agree that is a load of old guff, right? Oh, no, can't put up flags. It's a health and safety issue. I think we know, really, that people just don't want flags being displayed. That is Oxfordshire County Council, run by the Liberal Democrats. Meanwhile, in Bristol City Council say that flags should not be put up. Their Green leader, he's not green in colour, he's a Green Party member, Tony Dyer, has released a statement forbidding people from flying flags on lampposts or railings or any public property. As a journalist and a broadcaster, I've talked about people displaying their flags over the last couple of decades, and I've never really understood why it seems to be this country and no other country where it's a problem. So we're going to get into that. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes, your WhatsApp messages, and of course your calls. In the meantime, I'm going to talk to a gentleman by the name of Robbie Lamas. Now, Robbie is a councillor in Medway in Kent, and he's been on, I think it's fair to say, a little bit of a political journey. He was a Conservative Party councillor, then he left to join Reform UK. Now he's left Reform UK and is sitting, I think I'm right in saying, Robbie, as an independent. Welcome to Talk.
I prefer Tory in exile, but yes, you're correct.
You're a Tory in exile. Well, we'll get into whether or not you're going to try and rejoin the Conservative Party in a second. And let's be honest, some great politicians of our times have crossed the floor in the past. Most famously, Winston Churchill was a Conservative, went to Liberals, then went back to the Conservatives. So, you know, people still have great political careers despite maybe flip-flopping a little bit with their party of choice. I've got to ask you this question. You've written a piece for the Conservative Home website, which is really interesting. You talk about, you admit, if you like, making a huge mistake leaving the Conservatives last year in 2025. Why did you leave?
I left because I was worried that the Conservative Party was nearly finished. I also left because I was told by people in Reform that they were an alternative home for Conservative voices, that I would be welcomed with my Conservative principles, and that they valued people with experience. But unfortunately, the reality of the situation that has been my experience in Reform has not confirmed that to be true. In fact, I was quite concerned by many things that I saw on the inside, and that is why I've left. And in addition, at the same time, Kemi is doing much better now, and that's why I wrote to her to apologise.
Right. Have you had a reply yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And is your letter of apology also coupled with a wish to rejoin the Conservative Party and sit once again as a Conservative Party councillor?
Yes, I deeply miss the party that I loved for many years. I mean, I never changed my views or principles at all. I gave speeches inside Reform to branches across the region where I live in Kent, telling them how I feel they're a Conservative party, really, if only they realised it. So I've been personally entirely consistent, but I'm not naive to not understand that I hurt a great deal of many people. So I don't expect to be welcomed back with open arms anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the reaction when you decided to leave the Conservatives and join Reform UK. And politics is a strange beast. I've written about it and broadcast about it for many, many years. You know, some deep friendships do get developed and created. When you left the Tories to join Reform, did some of your colleagues just shut down on you? What was the reaction?
Oh, it was really bad. I massively underestimated the upset. I mean, there were many, many things said about me by people. I think the worst thing was someone said that I didn't have a soul.
Oh.
I think that is pretty dark and pretty deep. But there were lots of things said by people I just didn't appreciate at the time, the upset that I was caused.
That's interesting. Have you managed to try and repair any of those relationships?
Yeah, you know, it's been fun. It's been nice, actually. Like today, I've received lots of text messages and calls for all sorts of different people, some I haven't spoken to for years, who have actually praised me for admitting I've made a mistake. I mean, I don't personally have any problems about admitting the mistakes I make in life. I make a lot of mistakes. This is just a really, really bad one.
OK, you left the Conservatives, you joined Reform. At the time, if I've understood you correctly, you left the Tories because you didn't think they had much of a future. You conceded that Kemi, well, not conceded, but you made the point that Kemi Badenoch has kind of changed the party, if you like, and now...
At that time, she wasn't saying anything.
No.
So if you can go back to last year, the Conservatives had not yet committed to leaving the ECHR,
correct,
or unpicking judicial review, or tackling the Equality Act. And all of these things are sort of the central pillars of the policy platform that we need to get to in order to tackle the challenges of today. She has now brought the party to that position. Hand on heart, I couldn't imagine the Conservative Party would get there. I was arguing for those positions inside the party quite forcefully before I left it. And yet she's pulled it off, and hats off to her.
Yeah. When you joined Reform then, what kind of reaction did you get from local reformers?
It was mixed. Some people thought I was some kind of Tory spy or Tory plant.
Really?
Yeah, it was quite extraordinary.
Well, let me interrupt you there, if I may, for a second, Robbie, because that's quite, it must have been quite hard to hear or see, because there you are, making quite a leap, and I'll be blunt, it takes balls to do what you did as a politician, to leave one party and join another. You've already explained brilliantly how it affected some friendships and relationships. So you go to another party, in this case Reform UK, and then you're immediately met with superstition as opposed to loads of welcoming arms.
It was there were some nice people, and I want to say that there are good and bad in all parties and all walks of life.
Yeah.
That is of course true. But some of the scepticism and nastiness that I experienced was absolutely extraordinary. And it was purely based on the fact that I was a Conservative. I had Conservative beliefs, and I wasn't prepared to sort of denigrate my former party or some of the good things that were achieved. I thought that Reform were a home for people who voted Conservative in the past, and in my case stood for the Conservatives in the past. And my experience is they're absolutely not. They're not Conservative at all.
Well, that's interesting. And of course, you know, you don't have to dig too far to see or indeed, you know, hear and read quotes of various senior Reform UK politicians saying that one of their main objectives is to destroy the Conservative Party. So, I mean, you know, you would have joined Reform UK against that backdrop.
Well, I joined because I thought they were a welcome home. The infighting in Reform is utterly extraordinary. I mean, the Conservative Party is like one big dysfunctional family where they have rows all the time. Reform are like one big fat HMO, where they're all maybe in the same building, but they don't know each other, they don't trust each other, they don't like each other, and they're going to pull each other to part.
Do you think you backed the wrong horse by leaving Reform? And let me just put some stuff in your direction. You know, they're doing remarkably well in the polls. I mean, I think it's over 300 plus polls now where they're in the top spot. We know that Reform did well in last month's local elections. We know the year before this one, they took various county councils, including Kent County Council, which is in your patch. I mean, are you backing the wrong horse by leaving?
I think it's fair to say that as of right now, today, my decision is not based on the political whims of the moment. I honestly couldn't tell you who would win my ward if an election was tomorrow. It would be a toss-up between Conservative and Reform. I don't think this is about electoral prospects. I've accepted as part of leaving Reform after leaving the Conservatives that, you know, it's not entirely improbable that I don't stand locally again because I don't have a party platform to stand with and colleagues to support me and I support them. This is about me being true to myself and telling the truth, because unfortunately I can't lie. I can't just go with the flow or put up with personal gain. I'm in politics for the right reasons. I care about public service. I care about good governance. And it's really important that the right people get into those positions of power.
And just remind my viewers and listeners, when were you elected?
As a councillor, I was first elected in 2019, I think.
OK, and so when was the election after that?
I think there was a by-election 2021, then it was 2023. It's hard for me to recollect because I've been involved not just in my elections but other people's elections for about
No, understood. I'm just trying to work out the timeline. In all of those elections, though, that you stood as a candidate, was it under the Conservative banner?
Oh, yeah. Always been, I mean, Conservative. I worked for Conservative members of Parliament.
Sure. Because I guess the point I want to get to is if
I'm a Tory, blue-eyed Tory boy, you know.
And people might have voted for you on that basis. Then you basically shafted your voters who voted for you as a Tory blue-eyed boy, and you joined another party with no mandate to do it. That's what some viewers and listeners might be thinking.
Yeah, and they're justified in that. I mean, one of the things about being approachable as I am as a local councillor is that I sometimes get knocks at the door, usually 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday, with people deciding to take that precise moment in time to tell me to my face what they think. And I had a resident recently knock on my door and tell me that, look, we know you work hard for us, Rob, and we'll probably vote for you no matter what, but we did vote for a Conservative, mate. And that had an impact on me. So you're quite right to ask that.
And just give me a view, because you say that Reform UK is not a serious party. You are massively at odds with a big chunk of the electorate who suggest if there was an election tomorrow, they'd vote for them. Why do you think they're not serious?
They're very dysfunctional and very disorganised, and they lack this kind of the understanding of how things work in practice. I would also push back to you gently on the idea of...
you don't have to do it gently. I can take care of myself. Crack on. Go on.
Well, because one thing that I did observe in the recent round of local elections that's returned the midterm elections was that actually the areas which had pre-existing Reform representation, like at least 12 months prior, performed worse than areas that hadn't had it. So in my opinion, people want change because the status quo is absolutely not good enough. They're prepared to give Reform a go, but not in all cases do they like what they're tasting. And in some cases, I remember a by-election in the North East that was 11 months after a stonking victory where there was a 35% swing away from Reform, back to previous voting habits. That's not the case everywhere, of course, but you know, it's not the case that they're on a unified march. Another problem with Reform is that they unite so many people against them. And in the first past the post system, that really has a major impact. It is not okay to go around telling people that you hate them or you know, we should never forgive. And and all this kind of stuff. That's not the sensibilities of the British public at all, in my opinion.
OK, and a final question, and this is quite a hard question, but I'm doing my job here, Robbie. You know, are you not just being opportunistic? Reform have dipped in the polls over the last few months. Maybe you're sniffing the wind and you're thinking, do you know what? This probably wasn't my finest moment, going from the Conservatives to Reform. What I'm going to do is get out of Reform, hedge my bets a little bit and get back in with the Tories, because the Tories seem to be doing remarkably well at the moment under Kemi Badenoch.
No, I would agree they're doing much better with Kemi Badenoch, but this is not opportunism. This is about me being true to myself. I think I mean, viewers won't necessarily understand, nor should they really care, but for people that have done things like defections and gone through that process, it is really not easy. You know, the abuse that you get online and from people that you know quite well. I had one gentleman who wrote a 2-page essay about me, slagging me off. I mean, it's quite extraordinary what you have to put up with. So this is not for the faint-hearted. It's not been taken lightly. I've been fretting for quite some time, and I'm sincere in what I say.
Yeah, and that comes across. And what I will say, and I say this to anyone who is younger than me, and you certainly are a lot younger than me, who's prepared to stand for election and engage in politics, I take my hat off to you, because you're prepared to do something in the form of public service where many people are not prepared to do that. Robbie, thank you for your time this evening. That's Robbie Lamas, councillor for Medway, who was once a Conservative councillor, then he joined Reform, and now he's sitting as an independent. You can read his piece on Conservative Home. Lorraine messages. Now, I read out negative messages as well as positive messages, saying this is appalling, nothing like getting a turncoat to dish unverified dirt against Reform. Yet again, another attempt to discredit Reform when a by-election is imminent. Well, there's no discrediting going on here. This is called journalism. You know, there's an interesting story to tell there about a councillor who was Tory, then Reform, and now sits as an independent. It doesn't happen every day. This is Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists, they're coming over here, it's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You may be aware that the BBC's not had a good day today, the British Broadcasting Corporation. Full disclosure, I worked for the BBC for 6 years as a radio presenter, both in London and nationally and around the world. So I have a bit of skin in the game regarding the BBC, and I have often taken the view, and I'm not here to celebrate people losing their jobs, but as someone who is schooled in commercial broadcasting, i.e. broadcasting funded by adverts, it never ceased to amaze me just how much resource there was at the BBC when I was there. And we've heard today about job cuts. We also have a story where it appears that Channel migrants were placed on question time by campaigners and schooled and trained in how to be a participant in the audience. So that gets you into the whole area of integrity regarding the BBC. We're going to talk about the BBC after 9:30 tonight. We're going to talk to ace broadcaster and former BBC presenter Alex Dyke to get his take on what's happening. And these are significant changes coming down the pipe regarding the BBC. You're going to see certain programmes cut back. There's speculation of TV channels closing, and it once again just gets us into the whole area about what is the future of the BBC. And I take the view, and listen, I left the BBC. I wasn't sacked. I left to go and work in politics in Westminster, which I was more than happy to do. I got out for two reasons. One, I didn't like the culture there, and two, as a middle-aged white fat man, it became very clear very quickly that despite getting record audience figures, my time at the BBC was quite limited. So before I was pushed, I jumped, because I believe in life you have to take control of situations, control your own destiny. Don't let anyone else do it. Anyway, we'll talk about the BBC and the crisis that's unfolding just after 9:30. In the meantime, ton of stuff going on here about the benefits system and also flags. And I really want to get some flags calls on the air as we try and wrestle with this idea that it seems to be only in the UK that you should not display your country's flag. 0344 499 1000 for your calls, your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages on the subject of benefits. This is Jeff and he's in Middlesbrough. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Duncan. Good to hear you on the radio again.
Thank you. I've got away with it so far. What would you like to say?
Well, basically, the way I look at it, right, personal independence payments should have a complete name change, something like disabled supported payments. I've got a daughter who's got a friend at school whose both parents are blind and they get help in the house. They have an agency that comes in, they pay the agency for the support, you know, for the help in the house, like, you know, like some of the jobs that they find difficult to do, vacuum cleaning and stuff like that. And they get, you know, so they do get PIP and that, but that money goes towards the, you know, the care program that they get in the house. That's how it should all be about. When you get assessed for this payment, right, you should get a letter from the DWP saying, look, you've been awarded a payment, but we will give you a supported payment allowance to give to a care agency only. It doesn't go in your bank or your pocket. It's a voucher that you are awarded to give to a care company that comes in your house, helps you with daily needs or anything that, you know... That
Jeff, so this is really interesting. So just to make sure I've understood you correctly, that if you're talking about PIP, you believe that that funding should go to an authorised supplier or a business that can support you with your needs as opposed to someone just getting a cash payment?
Absolutely, like daily living requirements. So depending on what you've got issues with, whether you need help towards cooking or you need help in your house towards washing, bathing, all the kind of stuff that you get assessed for on the form, you should be given some kind of voucher from the DWP to be awarded to a care company or an agency. Doing that, you'll get rid of thousands upon thousands of people who are just claiming this money, you know, in their back pockets. You know, and I've always thought people with mental health issues should be given medication, not money in the back pockets to help them, you know, get over their anxiety. I've never understood that, but yeah, I'm all for supported living voucher, you know, to help these people to, you know, to improve their lives. Get rid of all the car schemes, get rid of all the cars. You don't need a car. You know, if you want a car, you can buy a second-hand one, you know, because there's people out there who are getting, like, you know, the mobility part of this thing, and they're getting cars, and you know, and it's like...
Jeff, let me ask you a question, if I may, and that's a really interesting suggestion you've made, so thank you for that. Do you think, and some people might say it's off the back of COVID, other people might just say it's less resilient generations beneath you and I, but do you think we're now in a country where some people just think that they should be able to rely on the state, and also it's too easy to rely on the state? Do you think that's the case?
Well, not really. I mean, like, benefits are not that... I mean, I know a guy down my street who's on universal credit, and the money he gets a month, You know, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's not like a big amount of money.
No.
You know, and I just want to quickly say this as well. Don't forget, MPs also get benefits. They get low, you know, they get money towards lower food, you know, food prices in Parliament and drinks and.
Well, certainly the bars are subsidised and the restaurants, and they will get allowances for, you know, second home accommodation and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm always a little bit wary talking about this kind of stuff on the radio because I never want to come across.
No, I just took it in there, Duncan.
Yeah, no, hang on, let me finish, mate, because all I wanted to say is I never want to come across as someone who's just here to bash people on benefits, but you can't ignore the figures, which are increasing quite significantly year on year. And when you hear and look at this official data that suggests that some people get PIP payments because of tennis elbow, you've got to question the system, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, from what my daughter's friend told me, mum and dad, you know, they got assessed and that, and you know, they say, what can you do around the home? And you get various points to get, you know, points. And I don't know, it's complicated. So, you know, most of those people who are applying for that benefit will probably get knocked back because obviously, you know, they do assess you properly to see what you can do, and they also go for like interviews as well. But the voucher scheme to me would get rid of all this nonsense where, and in fact, they could actually increase the voucher scheme to put more money on there to make sure you get the proper care you need.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea, your idea of a voucher scheme, vouchers to be used with approved companies who can support you with daily living. Jeff, good to have you on the air, mate. Thank you. That's Jeff in Middlesbrough, 0344 499 1000. If you want to give us a shout between now and 10. Talking flags, this is Kevin in Dorset. Hello, Kev.
Hi there. How you doing?
Very well, mate. What would you like to say?
Two things on the flags.
Yeah.
One, we never had a problem flying Ukraine flags to support Ukraine.
No.
We don't seem to have problems flying any Palestinian flags because that needs to be flown, or any other flag. So it's funny how the health and safety that flags might fall down or cause injury or harm to motorists seems to be being used, which is absolutely two-tier. Well, you could call it flag flying.
It is. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is two-tier flag flying. And, you know, people fly the Ukrainian flag because they want to show their support of Ukraine. People fly the Pride flag because they want to show support of Pride Month. People fly all kinds of flags, and there doesn't seem to be any issue. But the moment it's the George Cross or the Union flag, all of a sudden councils and councillors that tend to be on the left of the political spectrum, I mean, that's certainly where I'd place the Green Party and the Lib Dems, seem to have an issue here.
And that brings me to my second point and the truth behind it, which is the left, and it is a left thing, and you could call it Fabian society at the same time. They don't want this country united. They don't want our country to be strong. They don't want us to be proud of anything, because if we're proud, strong and united, then we're a good country working together for the betterment of the people in the country. And that doesn't necessarily have to be British people. That could be anyone who's living here legally and correctly. And I have many friends from different countries who live here and went through the system properly. But it's all about bringing in another type of person, destroying our culture, dividing us, and thus the elites can make control.
Kevin, you make some really good points. Thank you. I suspect... Are you driving somewhere?
I am on a very quiet road. There's like nobody around because everybody's watching the football.
Yeah, where are you driving to? Or where have you been? Or where are you heading to?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you say that again? I think we lost him. Key question. We'll never get the answer. Maybe he's on a B road somewhere in deepest, darkest Dorset. Be careful. That's Kevin, 0344 499 1000. We'll get to more of your calls between now and 10. You want to talk about the flag situation? Happy to hear your thoughts, and also who should lead the Labour Party. But up next, it's not been a good day for the BBC for a couple of reasons. They've announced significant job cuts, also the axing and cutting of programmes, and also we discover that the audience, in quite a controversial episode of Question Time that was filmed in Dover on December the 5th, including asylum seekers, which is not a massive issue, but asylum seekers were trained and schooled by an asylum charity. You may recall the episode. Reform UK's Zia Youssef got quite a hard time. He's hit back. And once again, we find ourselves having a conversation about integrity within the BBC. We'll talk to ace broadcaster and former BBC broadcaster Alex Dyke. We'll get his take on this next at Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just turned 9:30 Wednesday night. I'm Duncan Barkes. This is Talk. I'm here through until 10, and Petrie Hoskin, your nighttime queen, is here at Talk. We'll catch up with Petrie just ahead of 10 o'clock, find out what she's talking about, including her Talk Back hour just after midnight. In the meantime, the BBC once again in the spotlight for all of the wrong reasons. Now, I'm not in the market of celebrating people losing their jobs, right? Because it's hard to find another job. Not just in broadcasting or journalism or media, right across the board at the moment. The job market is in a shocker of a state. I've long taken the view, certainly inside the last 3 or 4 years, that the BBC is not facing up to reality of what's coming down the tracks. And what is coming down the tracks are generations beneath mine who simply will not wear the licence fee. They will not even put up with the idea that by law you have to pay the licence fee to fund the BBC. And I think the BBC has kind of ignored this. You know, they just put their head in their hands, they put their finger in their ears, going, no, can't hear you. And the thing is, right, less and less people are paying the licence fee. You know, we hear these ghastly stories of enforcement officers turning up at people's doors, demanding to come in. By the way, if they do, they have no legal right to come in, so tell them to do one, right? Just saying, well, hang on a sec. You're watching the TV, and people haven't got TVs. I mean, they use some real vile tactics, and they send some really nasty letters, particularly to vulnerable people in society. We're talking about watching the telly, right? Anyway, the BBC has finally confronted the reality of where it finds itself, which is there are less people paying the licence fee. It's not as loved as it likes to think it is, and consequently, they announced earlier today that they're going to cut 550 roles and review broadcast TV and radio programmes, and they're also reviewing positions of its chief news presenters. It's been reported it's the first phase of a major downsizing plan. They have a new Director General. His name is Matt Britton. He took up the role last month. He told employees earlier today that £160 million of staff and non-staff cost savings would be made from across BBC News and TV and radio teams by the end of the financial year. Now, this is the first thing. If they've identified these savings, why weren't they made in the first place? And I get a little bit agitated about this. As someone who's schooled in commercial broadcasting, who's worked all over the place, I have seen firsthand when I worked at the BBC, the amount of staff it takes to put out a programme, you compare it to the commercial sector, right? And it's a fraction of the headcount because the commercial sector has to make it work financially. The BBC has always been able to rely on the licence fee. And I'm just going to give you a sense of some of the programmes facing cuts and changes, and we'll get a view on this. BBC One, Sunday morning BBC Breakfast, is going to stop from September. Well, is that a big loss? I doubt it. BBC News Channel to be simulcast instead. Radio 4, The World Tonight, Midnight News, Moneybox Live, Antisocial, The Law Show and Crossing Continents to close this year. Radio 4, from April, weeknight audiences from 10 p.m. will hear a domestic bulletin, followed by a simulcast of the World Service programme, News Hour, running in the time slot. And there are various other cuts, including Radio 4 and the Today programme. I mean, obviously, you don't listen to that because you listen to Jeremy Kyle. But they're to have their roster of 4 permanent presenters rather than 5. losing one permanent presenter. And on Saturdays, they're going to move to a single anchor format. What, just one person presenting a show? Now, you might have picked up on the sarcasm, and I'll tell you why it's there, because for years, for decades, the commercial sector have had to make do with one or two presenters and producers, and they just crack on. So you can create this kind of broadcasting without spending vast amounts of money. So there are quite a few people tonight kicking off about it's not fair on the BBC. I take the view this is long overdue. And the other part of this story is the audience at the controversial episode of Question Time back in December in Dover. And it turns out that asylum seekers who confronted Reform UK's Zia Youssef were coached and trained and schooled in their appearance by a pro-migration charity. Is that an issue? Well, I think it is, because it's all about integrity. Let's get a view on all of that with ace broadcaster, former BBC presenter Alex Dyke, who joins us on Talk. Al, good to see you, mate.
Hello, Duncan. Nice to see you, and you're doing a great job this week filling in.
Well, you're very kind. Let's talk about these cuts to the BBC. I mentioned earlier, I think these are long overdue. You've worked for the BBC as well. You've also had a very successful career in commercial broadcasting. Should we have any sympathy for the cuts that have been outlined?
No. The only thing there that I'd like to save is BBC Radio 4's Money Box Live, because I think no one else would really make a programme like that apart from the BBC. And that's what the BBC, of course, is really meant to do. It's meant to make those programmes that wouldn't work in a commercial sector. So I think it's a shame that one's going.
Now, you make a really good point, because I believe there is a place for public service broadcasting in this country. I don't think it should be funded by the licence fee, which I think is archaic, and I don't think our kids will ever pay it. However, it can be funded either by subscription. People say, well, I actually want to sign up to that, so you give them the choice, or by a government grant. But that is proper public service broadcasting, right? And you mentioned Money Box. That is a form of public service broadcasting. Where the BBC, I think, has got it wrong for too long and has spent money competing with the commercial sector is stuff like Strictly Come Dancing or stuff like Radio 1, which the commercial sector could quite easily do. So I think it has to go back to basics, the corporation, and return to good old-fashioned PSB, public service broadcasting.
Absolutely. And if you look at something like Repair Shop, it took the BBC 10 years to commission that. Now, that never would have happened on ITV or Channel 4 unless the BBC do it and make a success of it, and then there's a copycat version. You could say the same for the British Bake Off. It wasn't a hit on paper. The BBC made it work, and that's when they're at their best. But you know, and I know, because we've been inside the BBC, working at the BBC for many, many years, there are far too many people working there, even at local radio level. And local radio is something that I know we're both really passionate about, because that's something the BBC does really, really well. But even in local radio, there's far too many people.
More managers than presenters. How does that work? How has that been allowed to happen over the decades? You have more pen pushers who have never sat behind a microphone in their life telling people how to do radio programmes, and there are more of that kind of management than there are people presenting the programmes.
Yeah, I know. Well, I felt that frustration when I was at the BBC. What the BBC needs, and I fear it's too late for the BBC now, the BBC always needed us to love and respect them. So when you and I were growing up, the BBC would cover a royal wedding like nobody else could. The BBC would make dramas and documentaries that nobody else could. Now there's various platforms that can make those programmes. And if you watch the really big dramas now, they're not going straight to the BBC or ITV. They're going to Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. Rivals it has been a massive hit. 10 years ago, that would have been a watered-down version. That would have been on the BBC, but not now.
I think you make a really interesting point. When you and I were growing up, and Al, just to be clear, got a few more years than me, but, you know, we're not vastly different. The BBC was held in very high esteem, certainly by our parents, certainly by us. There wasn't a great deal of media choice either. It was the BBC or maybe the odd commercial radio station. We had ITV, we might have had Channel 4, but there wasn't a great deal of choice. And it seems to me the BBC has held on to this concept that it is much loved, almost like a national treasure, for far too long, and is not moved with the times, and consequently it finds itself in a media landscape now where it's not as loved as it likes to think it should be.
The BBC has been left behind, and the BBC was straight out the gate with iPlayer. They were ahead of the game, and that was brilliant, but they somehow, some way, they lost their way. And I'm convinced, Duncan, because I've been on the inside, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, that the BBC is left, and that's why they're getting left behind. And wasn't it Donald Trump who said, go woke and you go broke? The BBC are so woke. And you know how fussy the BBC would be now if there was a drama on and someone was smoking in it. They'd say, oh no, we can't have someone smoking a cigarette. Yeah, but it's set in the 1980s when people did smoke. No. There's someone driving that car and they've not got a seatbelt on. They need a safety belt, right? So they are so fussy about that. But when it comes to question time, two people who entered the country illegally are allowed to speak on television as the BBC seem to want to shift public opinion on migration.
Yeah, now this is an interesting issue, this, because if I think Fiona Bruce, who's the Question Time host, and be very open about this and very candid, that the next two people you're about to hear from not only are asylum seekers, but they're people who have been schooled and represented by a charity and basically told what to say on this programme. Bearing in mind, one of them actually read out a statement, right? So one has to presume that that was provided by the charity, or certainly the charity assisted, the refugee charity assisted in putting it together. I think some people wouldn't be as angry about this as they rightly are tonight when they simply discover that two so-called members of the audience were effectively planted there.
Yes, and the BBC would have seen that statement before it was read out by that migrant. But these are people that have come into the country illegally. If they're going to come on the programme, they should be sat there with a couple of police officers either side of them. I mean, it's just madness. 710 people arrived by boats, 11 small boats on Monday. And it seems, as I said, the BBC want to shift our opinion on migration, where most of Britain is very, very angry about it. And do you know what, Duncan? We wouldn't be. If we flash back to the end of 1984, when Bob Geldof saw Michael Burke's BBC report on what was happening in Africa, if we could see those poor starving children and mothers arriving in the UK, we, the British people, the people that are seen to be on the right, we will be so sympathetic. But when it's young men, I hate to say this phrase again, but it's true, young men of a fighting age, I think, what are we doing? What about the women? What about the children? We're letting the wrong people in, and the BBC are giving it the oxygen of publicity. And as I say, trying to sway British opinion.
How damaging do you think stories like this, particularly with the planting of the asylum seekers in the Question Time audience, how damaging do you think stories like this are to the BBC?
They are very damaging to the people on the outside of the BBC, not just people who read the Daily Mail and people who watch and listen to talk, but they're very damaging to the BBC. But for the staff inside the BBC, they can't see it. They are so, in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, so detached from real life. When I left school, Duncan, I don't know about you, but when I left school, before I got into the BBC, I worked in bars and I worked on building sites and in shops and picking up litter and things like that, which made me understand what life was like for normal people, because I like to think, a normal person. But most of the people that you and I work with in the BBC, they left the BBC, they went to university, and then they went into the BBC. So they have a swaying to the left, and they don't even realise it in many cases.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to make that assessment. There is a form of subconscious bias there, because the kind of people the BBC want to employ and end up employing effectively do have a very progressive and metropolitan elite outlook on life, and consequently that bleeds in to many programmes and the coverage of many stories. Alex, always a pleasure. Thank you for an excellent chat. That's ace broadcaster, former BBC presenter Alex Dyke here on Talk. We're off the air at 10 and Petri Hoskin is here, but I'm aware if you want to get in quickly and talk about the future of the BBC and what you think it looks like, 0344 499 1000. Listen, I mean, the Question Time stuff's really interesting. In a previous life, I was a political consultant, and I have trained, not audience members, but I have trained politicians to appear on Question Time. I say trained, that's maybe some of the people I work with you can't really train. But what you would do is you'd sit down, you go through what you think some of the questions would be, you'd help them hone their answers and stuff. And I've dealt with the production team, which is an independent company that the BBC use. I've dealt with them on a couple of occasions in the past. I mean, this is several years ago now, not recently. And I can tell you that they know exactly who's in the audience. They know exactly the questions they want asked. And I just think it was such a dereliction of duty on both the part of the production company and the BBC not to be more open about these two audience members, not only being asylum seekers, which they said they were, but also the fact that they had been trained, media trained, to ask their questions to the panel. You want to pick up on that? 0344 499 1000. We'll get to more of your calls and more of your messages next here at Talk.
Violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, it's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
In case you hadn't realised, the 2026 World Cup has officially kicked off. Here at Talk, we are celebrating in style. How do you fancy getting your hands on a massive £26,000 in tax-free cash? Imagine what you could do with all that wonga. If you could do with a boost to your bank balance this summer, then here are the details on how to enter.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1 PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion, full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
And just related to that, we're heading towards half-time in Dallas. England up against Croatia. England 2, Croatia 1. 0344 499 1000. You want to get involved between now and 10, talking flags, talking benefits, and talking who should lead the Labour Party. This call's in Cyprus. It's Mary. Hello, Mary. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. I just wanted to say it is a few years ago now. My husband was on long term, I think it was called sickness.
Mary, what I'm going to do is just hand you back to one of our team because your line isn't the best, and if I'm struggling to hear you, our viewers and listeners will be struggling as well. We will try and come back to you once we've improved the quality of the call. This is Mark, who's in Lincolnshire. Hello, Mark.
Hi there, Duncan.
What would you like to say, sir?
What I'd like to talk about, if you don't mind, is, because you mentioned this earlier, this latest hit piece, this time from The Telegraph on Restore Britain.
No, I didn't describe it as a hit piece, but I did mention what the Telegraph website is displaying tonight. Yeah, I mean, just for the... Hang on, mate. Just for the benefit of people who didn't hear it, let me just give you the headline. The Telegraph website reporting that white supremacists refund the political party Restore Britain. They say that donors to Rupert Lowe's party include a campaigner who founded a group calling for expulsion of every non-white and Jewish person from Britain. That's what the Telegraph is reporting.
OK, right. Well, don't really care what the Telegraph is saying.
Well, no, but you understand why I read it out, so our viewers and listeners understand what you're about to talk about.
This is what the machine has to do. I mean, at the end of the day, right, Restore Britain in itself, I mean, that hit piece, the same as the Mail on Sunday one the other day, these hit pieces are actually based on a hope not hate piece on Restore Britain, which tells you everything about it. It tells you everything about the supposed right-wing rags of the Sunday Mail and, you know, the Telegraph and all these places are supposed to be right-wing, and here they are parroting hate, not hope.
Well, hang on a second, because I don't think, with the greatest of respect, you're factually correct. And I have very serious doubts about the work of Hope Not Hate, so you and I have a bit of common ground. However, these words have appeared on the social media feed of this bloke called Steve Laws, who campaigns for total remigration of all non-white and Jewish people. It's his social media words.
Yeah, and so what, Duncan? He's not. He has absolutely zero.
Well, hang on a second. I'm not here. No, hang on. Mark, we've got this off to a really bad start because you seem to think I'm here to... Well, let me make my point. You seem to think that I'm here to attack Restore Britain, all right? And I'm not.
I don't, mate.
Well, it sounds like it, fellas. So let's try and start again, because all I'm doing is reading out what's on the Telegraph website. Journalistically, I think it's interesting, because Restore are a coming force in politics. We've seen that in the polls. You keep saying to me, well, who cares? I would make the argument, not that I'm here to argue with you, that some people who have decided to lend their support to Restore as a national party and Rupert Lowe might find some of this stuff a bit distasteful.
Well, you see, this is the thing, though, isn't it, Duncan? Because the whole point of Restore Britain is an anti-establishment party. We don't necessarily play by the same rules as, say, for example, Reform. Because if this was Reform, they'd have, you know...
But it's not Reform, is it? It's Restore. So let's talk...
I'm making the point. If it was them, they'd condemn him, they'd throw him out, his membership be rescinded, all the rest of it. Whereas all Restore have ever said is they can't dictate who joins the party or even who donates to the party. Yeah.
Well, you can on the latter. Hang on, this is really important, Mark. You can on the latter, you're right. You can't necessarily keep abreast of everyone who decides to sign up online and become a member. I would argue that you can decide who you accept money from.
Oh, yes and no. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know how the structure really works.
Well, trust me, I've worked in politics, you know, unless it's a fiver in a bucket, right, if it's a significant donation, then you can decide whether or not you want that money.
Which from Steve Laws is probably not going to be a significant donation, I wouldn't have thought. But anyway, beside the point, what I wanted to get onto there was when you're reading out what they've printed about him, the remigration thing. Right, now, the Mail on Sunday referenced remigration as being ethnic cleansing of black and brown people, right, which is completely false. There is nothing illegal about holding the view of having remigration. It's a perfectly legitimate political view to have. Now, what they
well, if that's not what it means, what does it mean to you then?
Remigration. I mean, ultimately, if you're going down the Steve Laws route, because he calls for total remigration, so that would mean everybody that's not native would be remigrated from the country.
Right.
Yeah. But Steve Laws doesn't talk for Restore Britain. I'm a nationalist myself, Duncan. Restore Britain are not a nationalist party. They don't go anywhere near far enough for me, and I'm not at the level of Steve Laws. I call for a return to the 1990s demographics, which was much more cohesive as a society, and that's what a lot of nationalists actually want.
Right. So you, just so I'm clear, my viewers and listeners are clear, are you the kind of nationalist who wants to see all Jewish people booted out of the United Kingdom?
No.
Are you the kind of nationalist who wants all non-white people booted out of the UK?
No, because that's not nationalism.
So when you and I take I can accept your hang on a second, mate. Let me ask the question. Otherwise, it's really tedious for us both. All right. So I can take your view that this may well be a hit job on the eve of a by-election. All right, because I've been around media and politics enough to know how newspapers work, and you rightly pointed out that we've seen stories about Restore Britain, critical stories, in the Mail over the last couple of days. But when you hear these comments that have been posted on Steve Laws's social media feed, what do you feel about that?
Well, I disagree with them. I don't agree with everything that Steve Laws says.
So why do you keep referring to this as a hit job then, if all it is a newspaper reporting what this bloke has stuck on his social media?
Because it's a hit job designed to hurt Restore Britain.
But why is it a hit job? Why is it a hit job just to repeat what someone's posted?
There's nothing that Steve Laws talks about, Duncan, that's illegal. Remigration isn't...
No, that wasn't my question. My question is really simple. Why do you keep referring to this as a hit job?
Because that's clearly what it is. You've just said it yourself, Duncan.
No, I'm just repeating back to you what you said to me at least 3 or 4 times. Why is reporting someone's comments on their social media feed a hit job?
Because why is it worthy of reporting somebody's comments?
Because they're vile comments. This is a man who doesn't want Jewish people in this country. This is a man who doesn't want non-white people in this country. I'm gonna move it on, Mark, but listen, in the future, call me again. When we have more time, we can have a decent conversation, because you're the bloke who kept using the term hit job, not me. I'm pretty much done and dusted. I think I need a pint after this, which is just as well, because Petri Hoskin is here after 10. How are you?
I am. Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right.
You're back here a lot, aren't you?
I know. Keep getting away with it.
Yeah, well, that's
don't tell anyone, Petri, what we both know.
Don't tell anyone. Yeah, well, the football's on.
Yes.
2-1.
You noticed.
2-2 now.
Is it 2-2?
Yeah, Croatia
2-2.
Just scored another really good goal,
right.
actually.
OK.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the football's on, so I might be whistling Dixie for a while.
Go on, whistle Dixie for me.
But we are going to be talking, we're going to do a G7 roundup since Donald Trump told everybody at the meeting that he's the boss.
Yes.
And this deal is historic, as the best deal that's ever been made, apart from the JPCOA.
Did you watch any of it earlier? Did you see any of it?
Yeah.
He doesn't look well to me.
I said that last night.
Yeah.
I said that last night.
And, you know, he's a guy who, let's, you know, benefit of doubt, probably very badly jet-lagged.
Yeah.
OK, and he's 80 now.
Yeah.
No, I'm not being ageist before anyone shouts. But I watched him and I thought, you do not look well.
No, he doesn't look well. He doesn't look right at all. But he hasn't for a while, I think, apart from his doctors, his 22 doctors.